Good morning to you. It's 6 o'clock on Friday, the 5th of April. Today, the Westminster honey trap scandal. Tory MP Will Wragg admits his involvement after leaking colleagues' numbers to a man he met on a dating app.
Yes, another MP behaving badly. William Wragg, a senior Conservative, says that he is mortified and apologises profusely after admitting sending explicit images to someone online and also passing on phone numbers of other MPs who were then targeted. I'll bring you more shortly.
US President Joe Biden tells Benjamin Netanyahu to stop killing civilians in Gaza, begging the question, will Washington withhold arms sales to Israel?
Could a new activist group bring more disruption to our streets this spring? Just Stop Oil and the controversial group Pro-Palestine Action have joined forces. We have a GB News exclusive. Charlie Peters has the latest.
Find out why Policing Minister Chris Philp has issued a fresh warning this morning about criminality having no place on our streets. I'll have the exclusive this hour.
A survey reveals a record number of police officers are now turning to food banks in order to stay afloat. Is it time they get a pay rise?
Should we put fillings before fillers? Dentists have come under fire after apparently providing patients with Botox treatments. That comes, of course, amid a backlog of dental appointments.
And in the sport this morning, all Manchester United fans look away. So Manchester United snatched defeat from the jaws of victory against Chelsea. Liverpool go top again as they beat Sheffield United. Max Verstappen is the fastest in practice in the Japanese Grand Prix.
Rain, hill snow, 20 Celsius possible tomorrow, and some very strong winds from a storm system. There's lots going on with the weather over the next couple of days. Join me later for a full forecast.
Morning to you, I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
Now, I've got to talk to you about biscuits this morning. It's very important for a number of reasons. Apparently, there's a new survey saying hobnobs are the ultimate biscuit to dunk in your tea. Well, we sort of knew that.
Yeah.
But also, the Daily Star's put a lovely biscuit quiz in this morning.
Yes.
So there's two for you.
OK, yeah. I know my biscuits very well,
actually.
Do you?
OK.
I would say I'm a biscuit connoisseur.
So fig rolls were invented as what? A health food, an aphrodisiac or a sleeping boost?
Health food.
That is correct.
Ding, 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 ding.
Digestives, everyone likes a digestive.
Yeah.
Buttered. No, buttered digestive.
No, on on a battery base on a cheesecake, maybe.
Oh, well, that's true.
Yeah.
Anyway, they were made to cure what? Gout, wind or toothache?
Gout.
Wind.
Wind.
The reason I bring up biscuits, and you may well ask...
Yes.
...is because someone promised me today that they were going to bring in...
Oh, yeah, about that.
mini egg cookies. I was told this was a promise.
Yeah.
I think she said on the phone on Wednesday, I'm going to make mini egg cookies and bring them in as a special treat on Friday.
As a Friday treat.
And I did notice this morning your handbag was empty.
Did you go rooting through my handbag again?
Of course, I was looking for biscuits.
He's like a raccoon.
Where are they?
Well, no, that can be explained. So I went out last night to see the Scoop film, which is actually out on Netflix today. It's about the Prince Andrew documentary. So I would say I was actually technically working, because we're going to be talking about it later today.
Are we?
So technically I was working late last night, so I couldn't bake. But I am working with you tomorrow and I am working with you Sunday, so I thought you'd forgive me, because then I could whip up a batch this afternoon and you'll have them as your Saturday treat instead. Is that OK?
That'll sort of
Does that suffice?
It will sort of suffice.
But it is awkward because it's not only you that I promised said biscuits to.
No, it's not. It'll be the better half, is it?
No, the management.
Well, they will be in over the weekend.
No, I said to them I'd bring them in today. This is what I'm saying.
Oh, Jesus.
So things are more awkward than you think.
It's been nice working with you.
I know. I'm going to be sacked.
So fired.
I know.
So fired.
But you'll get some tomorrow.
Good. Well, I'll keep you on for the weekend.
And maybe I'll leave some on the desk.
Then you're out the door, frankly.
Sorry.
Right, let's crack on with the main news this morning. It's on a lot of the papers today. You were talking about that honey trap yesterday. Well, we now know a bit more detail. Conservative MP Will Wragg has admitted that he's been involved in all of this, and he's handed out personal phone numbers of colleagues to a man he met on a dating app.
Yes, the Hazel Grove MP said he provided the details after sending intimate pictures of himself to the user. Wragg said he was scared that the man had compromising things on him.
Let's talk to our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, who's in Westminster for us this morning. I mean, there's lots of elements to this, Catherine. First and foremost, this sounds like blackmail.
Yes, it does. And concerns, of course, about what MPs put online. But yes, this story broke yesterday, but more details have emerged overnight, specifically that William Wragg, who's a senior Conservative, represents Hazel Grove in Greater Manchester since 2015. He's vice chair of the 1922 committee. He has admitted that basically he fell foul of this sexting scandal. He met a man on Grindr, the dating app. He sent a compromising photograph. This person then pressured him into giving the numbers of up to a dozen other MPs and parliamentary staffers. This person then contacted them pretending to be either a man called Charlie or a girl called Abby, pretending to have met them, gave them information which made them think like they knew them. Most of these MPs ignored these messages, but two others, we understand, did also send compromising pictures. Now, William Wragg, for his part, says that he says, I've hurt people by being weak. I was scared. I'm mortified. I'm so sorry that my weakness has caused other people hurt. Leicestershire police are now involved investigating what they call malicious communication. So Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker of the House, has written to MPs emphasising, good practice in keeping safe. But my goodness, yet more bad news for the government. They want to be talking about cuts to national insurance, but instead, here we are talking about another MP behaving badly. He's not the first. He won't be the last. But goodness, the government doesn't need this at the moment. Worth saying William Wragg is standing down at the next election, despite the fact that he's only quite young.
He is indeed. I mean, this is going to bring up huge questions about security, isn't it, Catherine? Especially in Westminster. Some MPs think a foreign power could be behind this cyber attack. It could also just be an individual. We're not quite sure on the details just yet, are we?
No, we're not. We don't know who is behind this. This person claiming to be either Charlie or Abby could potentially be foreign involvement. We simply do not know at this stage. But clearly there is a general election looming. There are countries, Russia, China, others that would like to destabilise us. So it is important that MPs are mindful of this, and, what they put online is important, and it can come back to bite them. And it is surprising in some ways that MPs should behave like this, given that they must know the risks. Children are taught at school fairly basic stuff about online safety. Don't send compromising images to people that you don't know. Be very careful about what you put out there. It seems like some MPs could do by learning those lessons as well.
OK, Catherine, for now, thanks very much indeed.
Now, US President Joe Biden has called for an immediate ceasefire following a tense phone call between the Israeli Prime Minister and the American President.
Well, during the conversation, Netanyahu also promised to open 2 new aid corridors into Gaza in the first such talks since Israel killed 7 aid workers on Monday.
Well, let's get the thoughts of former advisor to the Clinton and Bush administrations, Steve Gill. Good to see you this morning, Steve.
Good morning.
What do you make of this tense 30-minute phone call between Joe Biden and Benjamin Netanyahu?
Well, first of all, I think the fact that Joe Biden is calling for a ceasefire from Israel without issuing a similar call to Hamas, who are continuing to hold hostages from that atrocious attack on Israel would make for a tense conversation. And second, you've got Joe Biden calling for the political ousting of Netanyahu by Israel. If somebody was calling for Joe Biden to get defeated in the election, a foreign power, I think he'd be a little testy when they had their first conversation as well.
Yeah, but, you know, you raise perfectly valid points, Steve, of course you do. But with all of this, the international community has turned against Israel now in all of this, hasn't it? I mean, not because of what they went through in October, but because of how absolutely brutal the response has been. Now, the big question is Israel really going to listen to what America is telling it?
I think there's pressure on them, particularly since Joe Biden and the administration are threatening to cut off arms shipments. You've got the UK threatening to cut off arms shipments to Israel to try and force their hand to be much more soft in dealing with Gaza at this point. But you're exactly right. I mean, the world community is starting to turn their attention to Israel as they fight in this extremely tight environment. And it is almost impossible to hit targets without having some level of civilian casualty. And the question is, can they just leave Hamas in place, with Hamas threatening that they will do, again, what they've done to Israel? They're not backing off at all. So Israel's really in a hard place. They have to eliminate Hamas as a threat. And while trying to virtually eliminate any possibility of civilian casualties, I don't think anybody seriously thinks that Israel intentionally was hitting these aid convoys, even though some are claiming that. I think it's just in war in tight confines, there will be civilian casualties. And at some point, you've got the Hamas terrorists that are continuing to attack these convoys, steal the food and medicine that's intended for civilians. So it's a difficult situation all around, and I think you have to give Israel some latitude, while at the same time demanding they be very, very careful about civilian casualties.
Steve, just how likely do you think it could be that Joe Biden would consider limiting arms sales to Israel or limiting intelligence sharing? Because both of those options are on the table, but he's been criticised for that being simply just threats, just words.
Well, I think the intelligence capabilities are more important than ever. You need to be giving Israel everything that we have, that the West has, of where targets are appropriate and those that are not, to try and make better lines between what would be a legitimate target and what might put civilians at risk. At the same time, Joe Biden is playing a political calculus. He has real issues with the Muslim community in the U.S. in key battleground states like Michigan and Minnesota that he has to carry in November to win re-election. And you have a lot of protest, free Palestine kinds of protest, and even heckling at his own events. He's playing that political calculation, calculating that the Jewish vote in the U.S. is not as significant to him in those states as trying to make sure that the Muslim vote in those states stays sided with him. So he's playing a political calculation, and cutting off arms may or may not help him or hurt him in November.
OK, Steve, good to see you this morning. Thanks very much indeed. Would love to know your thoughts today. gbviews@gbnews.com. Whatever America does, should we stop sending arms over there if they're being used and killing civilians to the level they are at the moment in Gaza? It's a hugely difficult and complex situation where people have got every sympathy with what Israel went through. Have they responded appropriately or not? The fact that, what is it, 6-7 months on?
Yeah.
Now, and this is still happening.
It's over 30,000 dead now, isn't it?
Yes, which seems to be, talking to Robert Fox yesterday, I mean, that figure comes from Hamas. There's 32,000, I think, isn't it? Of which some will be Hamas fighters, but a lot, the majority are civilians. But Robert Fox was saying, well, that seems to be a pretty accurate figure, actually, even though you can question what Hamas says. I don't know. It's a very difficult one. Very difficult one. Do let us know what you think about that story, or indeed any of the stories we're talking about today. gbviews@gbnews.com. Now, could a new activist group bring more disruption to our streets this spring? Well, the policing minister, Chris Philp, has issued a warning after GB News revealed that Just Stop Oil youth movement has joined forces with the controversial activist group Palestine Action for a so-called resistance campaign.
Well, together they are calling for an end to oil and gas licences and an embargo on arms deals with Israel. Youth Demand is planning marches and unspecified action next week. Well, our reporter Charlie Peters has the story.
New environmental group Youth Demand is advertising upcoming marches and activities in collaboration with Palestine Action. The group started as Just Stop Oil students and is asking volunteers if they are willing to risk arrest. I met with Chiara Sarti, an organiser with the group.
We're a new campaign that is demanding that the Tories and the Labour Party commit to stopping all Tory oil and they stop selling weapons with Israel and buying weapons from Israel.
But you're also saying that they're driving another genocide by virtue of links with oil and gas.
They're allowing these fossil fuel projects to go through. When that carbon gets put in the air, it will result in the deaths of millions of people.
Why do you think that the pro-Palestine and environmental causes are linked?
If you look closely, it is the same broken political system that is driving genocide on both fronts. The Tories and Labour are driving these policies that are going to kill millions of people. They basically place no value whatsoever on human life. And we can clearly see this in Gaza. I think this clearly goes to show just how little value they place on human life, how cheap Palestinian blood is to those people.
We've also seen some slightly stronger protests and such as shutting down factories. And what do you make of that sort of behaviour, particularly shutting down factories associated with the Elbit system?
Yeah, we absolutely need to do everything we non-violently can to sever the links between the UK and the Israeli war machine. Absolutely.
And that includes smashing up factories, blocking sewers, breaking windows. You support all of that action?
I think we need to emotionally connect with what is happening here. 12,000 kids have been brutally murdered. I think if that's not going to get you on the streets, you basically have no values whatsoever. The next 1,000 generations are going to spit on your grave.
Well, Charlie's here in the studio. I mean, look, they're uncompromising. They've got their own, you know, they're determined to get their voices heard. But in a sense, that's youth, isn't it? 'Twas ever thus.
Well, potentially, because Youth Demand is a spin-off from Just Stop Oil. It's associated with the larger organisation, which has been extremely disruptive in recent years, but it's always been non-violent. And Lord Walney, the government's political advisor on political violence and disruption, has said that this represents an unholy alliance of militant Gaza protesters and environmentalists, because he fears, like many others, that this could be the start of a new process of radicalisation, where some people involved in the environmental cause are latching on to this crisis in the Middle East to get their message back into the public consciousness. We've also heard, since we've revealed these new links between these groups, from the policing minister, Chris Philp, who said that criminality has no place on our streets and that the police have been given new powers to take a look at these issues, and they won't stand by if groups such as Just Stop Oil and Palestine Action combine for protests coming up. Now, as we were saying, Just Stop Oil and associated groups, disruptive but not necessarily violent. Palestine Action, by contrast, have been much stronger in their protests. And it was interesting hearing from Chiara Sarti, who we just heard from, saying that while she said her movement was non-violent and believed in protest, peaceful protest, she did also say that she agreed with some of the actions of Palestine Action, which we're seeing on your screen now, which is the destruction of factories, several incidents relating to that since the group was founded in 2020. They are particularly keen on targeting businesses associated with Israeli military technology firms, and that has led to these concerns now that some of those environmental groups, in collaboration with more, let's say, direct pro-Palestine groups, could see that sort of disruption coming onto the streets of Britain soon. We do know that they're meeting from Sunday for the first time. This is a new group that we're revealing, and this collaboration with Palestine Action is set to occur in central London on Wednesday. What it would include, they won't tell me, funnily enough. They don't want to give away their plans, but they did say that hundreds would be involved.
OK. And what do you think the police response will be on Wednesday? Presumably they're prepared.
Well, it very much depends on the sort of protest we see. If it's just a march and some degree of disruption, then I think it'll replicate some of the police action we've seen so far with other Just Stop Oil related activities. But we do have new police powers coming in today, and so this could be a first major test of what Policing Minister Chris Philp is describing as those new powers that they have to take them on, if that direct action is some of the kind we're used to seeing with Palestine Action.
OK. Charlie, thank you. Well, Youth Demand has told us in a statement, Chris Philp is right that criminality has no place in our streets, but it also should have no place in the corridors of power. Sadly, that's not the case at the moment.
People of all political persuasions are seeing that politics is failing us and that our leaders are more interested in enriching themselves rather than protecting ordinary people. Young people are not content to have criminals running the country. Palestine Action yet to get back to us.
Yeah. You can see what they're saying, but they're not criminals in Westminster, are they? I mean, that's the point. There's a difference between calling someone a criminal because you don't like what they're doing to actually engaging in criminal behaviour.
Yeah. The worry is, I think, the youth, as we have seen with Just Stop Oil, are almost the most disruptive of these groups because they're the most willing to engage in disruptive behaviour. You know, they're the ones scaling the gantries on the M25, for example. So having this alliance, it will be very interesting to see what they're planning next week.
Yeah.
It will be very disruptive.
OK. Let's change tune, give you something to smile about this morning and tell you about the biggest giveaway of the year so far. It's your chance to win a £10,000 Greek cruise for two, but that's not all, is it, Miss Costello?
No, Mr Dixon, there's also £10,000 worth of cash and a whole host of luxury travel gifts. So your 2025 holiday could be on us. Here's all the details you need to enter.
You could win our biggest prize giveaway so far. First, there's an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Plus, courtesy of Variety Cruises, a bespoke 7-night small boat cruise for two worth £10,000. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, your next holiday could be on us. Choose any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and find your home at sea. We'll also send you packing with these luxury travel gifts. For a chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 26th of April. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Sorry for calling you Mr Dixon. It is indeed Dr Dixon.
Mr Dixon.
Yes.
Thank you very much indeed. Let's get it right.
It's Dr Dixon to you. Sorry.
Now, Paul Coit is going to be here with all your sport in just a moment. This is GB News.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task. This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Now, at 6:25, 7 men and women guilty of heinous offences are to be sentenced today in what many believe to be Scotland's worst child abuse case.
Yes, from 2012 to 2019, 4 children were subject to depraved acts of sexual violence in what became known as Beastie House in Glasgow.
Well, amongst the crimes, the attempted murder of a baby girl. Our Scotland reporter, Tony Maguire, reports.
Last year, the High Court in Glasgow oversaw what many believe to be Scotland's worst ever child abuse trial. It was a case so gruelling that jurors were offered counselling, and a senior detective described the depravity as unprecedented. 7 members of the child sex ring were told by Judge Lord Beckett they faced possible life sentences for preying on 4 children, 3 accusing them of gang rape and sexual abuse, in a dank Glasgow drug den between 2012 and 2019.
You should understand that each of you faces a very substantial prison sentence, and that at the very least it is likely in each of your cases to be extended.
Ian Owens, Elaine Lannery, John Clark, Paul Brannan, Barry Watson, Scott Forbes and Leslie Williams were found guilty of a litany of charges in November, including the rape and sexual assault of children.
5 were found guilty of the attempted murder of a baby girl in a microwave. She was forced to eat dog food and was chased around by people wearing a devil mask. Another 2 were found guilty of neglect and willfully exposing children to harm.
An 8th defendant, Marianne Gallagher, was convicted of assault, and 3 others were acquitted during the trial. Minister for Children and Young People in the Promise, Natalie Dawn, said she hoped that the verdict would bring some small comfort that those found guilty would soon face justice. She told STV News that child sexual abuse and violence is abhorrent, and my thoughts are with the children involved in this case at what must be an unimaginably difficult time. Detective Superintendent Nicola Kilbane said the courage of the victims was essential in securing this conviction.
This has been a horrific ordeal for the young victims who were subjected to years of unimaginable abuse.
The ruling is believed to be the largest prosecution of a child sex ring in Scotland, following what he described as a harrowing trial with the most distressing evidence. Judge Lord Beckett excused the 15 jurors from ever serving on a panel again. Tony Maguire, GB News, Glasgow.
Absolutely shocking. Absolutely shocking.
Very, very upsetting.
OK, at the time, at, 28 minutes past 6, let's have a look at the weather for you today with Alex Deakin.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Another wet start for many out there today, but it should get a bit brighter through the day. Some wet weather across Scotland with some hill snow here. Some pretty grim conditions on the roads with a mixture of hill snow and heavy rain at low levels. Not very pleasant at all. That wet weather is clearing away, as is the rain from eastern England. So brightening up, certainly in the south, some sunny spells developing through this afternoon, but there will still be a fair few showers to chug through on a fairly brisk wind. That wind, though, is bringing relatively relatively mild air, so temperatures in the sunny spells, 16, 17, maybe 18. It feels cold, though, still across Scotland. Single digits likely here. And another pulse of rain will cross Scotland through this evening and overnight. It will chiefly be rain, though, tonight, rather than the hill snow we've seen through last night. Another area of rain then works up across the rest of the UK, and the winds continue to strengthen, particularly in the west, through the early hours. But again, bringing that mild air, a very mild night, lows of 10 to 12 Celsius in the south. So a warm start to the weekend, but a windy one as well, particularly so in the west. Around western coast, we have a Met Office yellow warning in place. Storm Kathleen named by the Irish Weather Service because they will bear the brunt of the strongest winds, but nevertheless unseasonably gusty for us on Saturday. Those winds could cause some travel disruption. There will be some showers, but many places will be dry with some sunshine, and it will still be very warm, particularly in the east, over 20 degrees for the first time this year.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Time for the sport this morning. Paul Coyte is here. Good morning to you.
Oh, good morning. Oh, what a game yesterday.
At Stamford Bridge.
It was, yeah. And there's a few Manchester United fans around this building, around this area, that are shifting uncomfortably every time I talk about this. So anyway, it was Chelsea versus Manchester United. Shall I go through it very quickly?
Go on.
Because there's a lot to go through. Chelsea, after 19 minutes, go 2 up. You're thinking, this is incredible. Chelsea, things are turning around for Chelsea. Things are looking good so early on. Who would have expected that? Then United then make a comeback. 34th minute, 39th minute. Bruno Fernandes.
Oh, he's my favourite.
Fernandes, as I prefer to call him, because that's just nonsense. So it's 2-2 at half-time, so all to play for. Very exciting game. Then Manchester United pretty much complete the comeback after going 2-0 down, go 3-2 up after 67 minutes.
Right.
Garnacho scores. Garnacho scores. Then it looks like that's where it's going to be. So we're into 90 minutes. Game should be all over. Chelsea fans are leaving, thinking Manchester United have done a smash and grab. We were 2-0 up and go and lose 3-2. Then it goes on. 10 minutes added time. Chelsea then get a penalty. Cole Palmer scores from the penalty. Second penalty, by the way. Scores. And then it's like hell for leather. And Manchester United, are, they're on the back foot. And then there's another goal. It's the latest goal that we've ever seen in the Premier League. 100 minutes and 39 seconds. And then Manchester United then capitulate. And it's 4-3 to Chelsea. So many Chelsea fans had left because they thought it was all over. Can you imagine what it's like when you're leaving? I know people that have done that. And then you hear the yell. And you can tell the difference outside the stadium of what is a good yell and a bad yell.
Oh dear.
And
Have
so
you ever left early?
Yeah, and they'd left early. And so no team has ever been leading so late to go on to lose. That's for all the Manchester United fans. I'm so sorry. Manchester United, it's their 17th defeat of the season, which is the worst record that they've had since 1990. And Eric Ten Hag, I think, is in a whole heap of trouble, to be honest with you.
Yeah, he is. What about Liverpool?
Liverpool are OK. They won 3-1.
Oh, excellent. Well done.
Anyway, that's the other. Liverpool, it was, they're playing Sheffield United, so Sheffield United are bottom. And you're thinking, well, how is this going to go? And then 1-1 it was for quite a while, but then Liverpool do what they do, scored a couple of goals. Amazing goal by Alexis McAllister.
They leapfrogged, and are they top of the...
They are. So Liverpool are top on 70, we've got Arsenal on 68, and then Manchester City on 67.
Right.
It's very tight at the top, Stephen.
Should we look at F1?
Yeah, just briefly, it's the first practice session in Suzuka in Japan. Both Red Bulls are the fastest. I mean, it's not really a surprise, to be honest with you. Max Verstappen, fastest again. Sergio Perez, Carlos Sainz for Ferrari, and then the two Mercedes of George Russell and Lewis Hamilton after that.
OK, yeah, I like a bit of a bus stop. What have you got?
I know you do.
I know I seem like a very placid character, but, I'm up for a bit of a bus stop.
I'll be honest with you. In sport, when you hear people say, oh, there's a fight on the pitch or something happens, and they go, oh, you don't want to see that, actually is... Yes, you do, a lot. So hang on a second, let me tell you about this. This was ice hockey. Now, ice hockey, of course, it's almost like ice hockey breaks out in the middle of a fight, usually.
Yeah.
So this is over in the States, and this is a huge game. So this is New York it's New York Rangers against the New Jersey Devils. This happened the other night. So anyway, how long do you reckon until a fight broke out? It was actually involved every single player.
Oh, wow.
So how long from the beginning?
I don't know, 5 minutes.
5 minutes? What are you going to go for, Ellie?
2 minutes.
How about 2 seconds?
No.
Have a look at this. Look at this. 2 seconds from the start of the game. There we are. The lights are on. Everybody's excited. We've got a great local derby. 1, 2. And there it goes. And the fight breaks out. So that's 2 of them.
Oh.
That's Rangers' Matt Rempe and New Jersey's Curtis McDermott.
Oh, then they're all kicking off.
And they all start. But the thing is, it's like going to a dance. They've all decided the other one they're going to pick on. So it's like, well, OK, I'm going to dance with you. I'm going to dance with you. And then away they go.
Oh, dear.
And then you've got the coaches that are coming afterwards go, yeah, I'm very proud about the way they stuck up for each other. I think it's the only sport where you go along and everybody sees the fight as part of it.
It's very hard, isn't it?
It really, really is.
Brilliant.
What entertainment.
I hate to say it, but I love it.
OK, I know, me too. Isn't it terrible?
Paul, thanks very much indeed.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Now, the Secretary to the Treasury, Gareth Davies MP, will be joining us very shortly to talk about the government's national insurance tax cuts. So do stay with us.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Julian Brett. In Worcestershire this morning, the southbound M5 has a lane blocked for emergency repairs. That's from junction 8 for the M50 to junction 9 for Tewkesbury. Gloucestershire now, the M48, the Severn Bridge restrictions are in place both ways because of this morning's very strong winds. That's from junction 2 for Chepstow to junction 1 for Ost. Runcorn in Cheshire, the A533 Central Expressway. Now this northbound stretch remains closed for emergency repairs at the Bridgewater Expressway. And taking a look at South Yorkshire, the A638 Wakefield Road eastbound remains closed for the moment. There's been an accident. That's between Leys Lane and the A1. The M8 westbound in Edinburgh, 2 lanes are blocked. There's been an accident at junction 2 for the M9. There's more in 30 minutes.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
All right, at 6:37, time to get some politics for you. You can talk to the Exchequer Secretary to the Treasury, Gareth Davies, who joins us out. Really good to see you this morning. I know there's lots to talk about in regard to national insurance. Before we get to that, though, I want to talk to you about this honey trap business and now this confirmation from Vice Chair of the 1922, Will Wragg, that he's handed over a load of personal information of MPs. I mean, this is hugely concerning, isn't it?
Well, good morning, and thank you as ever for having me on your show. Yes, it is extremely troubling and worrying for anybody to hear this kind of activity takes place. Will Wragg has, as you referred to, apologised for the action he took, but took in a set of circumstances that I think many could potentially sympathise with, in that he felt compromised and acted in a way that he thought appropriate, but has clearly apologised for that activity. I would just say to anybody watching that feels that they're in a similar position, If they ever feel like they're being compromised or blackmailed, they should report that to the police. And in this case, there is an investigation going on by the police and parliamentary security. And so it's difficult for me to comment beyond what I've just said, but it's clearly a very troubling situation.
But Gareth, what advice is being given out to MPs at the moment? Because, of course, this is heightened concerns about the vulnerability of MPs to cyber attacks. And it is very concerning that we don't actually know how many MPs have been targeted in this attack. There could be many more than we know of, and there could be many more compromising pictures and details that have been shared with this person.
Well, you're right to raise the concern about MPs' cyber security generally. But what I would say is that we do have a pretty robust system of checks in place. We have a very well-resourced parliamentary security department who are constantly providing advice to members of parliament as well as services to us. So there are processes in place. There's resourcing and there's a department dedicated to this. But clearly, when certain situations happen like this one in particular, you know, there's only so much you can do.
Yes, and MPs, frankly, should know better than to put compromising pictures of themselves or send them to anyone. We know that. However, we've got to ask with this, and I know we haven't got a clear answer as yet, but there's got to be a concern. You know, either a malicious person, but this could be a foreign actor, couldn't it? There's a potential, at least, that this could be someone like China, someone like Russia involved in this sort of thing.
I'm not going to speculate on this particular case, but we do have like I said, a very good parliamentary security department. The police are investigating this particular incident and situation, and so you'll accept that. Hopefully, I can't comment further on that because of those reasons. But we are alive to any threat that can occur against MPs, and we have resources in place to tackle that.
Look, I wanted to talk to you about reports we're hearing of Joe Biden having a very tense phone call with Benjamin Netanyahu about civilian deaths in Gaza. It's his strongest indication yet that he is considering limiting arms sales to the country. Also reports this morning that he's considering limiting sharing intelligence with Israel as well. With 32,000 people dead now in Gaza, some of those Hamas fighters, but amongst them as well innocent civilians, aid workers and Israeli hostages. There are some people who think that too many mistakes are being made. Should we, as an ally of Israel, be considering limiting arms sales and intelligence as well?
Well, look, the Prime Minister's been clear. Too many civilians have been killed and not enough aid is getting through. And that's a message that he delivered directly to Prime Minister Netanyahu on Tuesday when he spoke to him. I think he described the situation as increasingly intolerable. Now, in terms of our export controls, we do actually in the UK have incredibly robust arms export control mechanisms and a system. It's enshrined in law thanks to the Export Control Act of 2002, and that places on the government a series of responsibilities to ensure that any export licenses that are granted by the government are assessed constantly as to whether they are contributing in any way or facilitating the violation of international humanitarian law. That's an ongoing process. It draws evidence from a series of sources. And as I say, this is constantly reviewed by my colleagues in other departments.
Let me ask you then about national insurance, because I know you're here to sort of push the idea that the cut in NI, which was announced, a month or so ago now, is coming into force tomorrow, I think. I mean, the government's saying it rewards hard workers, it's going to end double taxation on work and all that sort of thing. Labour says, because you're not adjusting the tax thresholds, that actually people are going to be £870 worse off under the government. So whatever money they're getting back, they're still going to end up paying more tax.
Well, you're right to highlight national insurance contributions. It does come into effect tomorrow. This is the second time in 6 months that we've cut national insurance contributions, so it's down by some 30-odd% in just the last half a year. And we want to go further. We've said that, if you've got a job, you pay two types of tax. You pay income tax and you pay national insurance. And so we think that's a fundamentally unfair thing. And eventually, over time, we have an ambition to remove that unfairness, and we're making good progress already. On the thresholds, this is a government since 2010 has doubled the point at which you start paying income tax. We've doubled that threshold. So in this country now, I think you can earn almost £1,000 a month without paying any tax at all. And so that's the statistic I would put back at you. We have supported earners through income tax by increasing the thresholds. But I make no mistake. I'm first to state that we've had to make some very difficult decisions in recent years because the debt has increased so high, because we stepped in with so much support during COVID and the war in Ukraine pushed up energy prices, which meant that we had to effectively pay 50% of people's energy bills. So inevitably, if you're going to manage the economy sustainably, you need to balance these things. But we have been very clear that we want to reward work, we want work to pay, and that's why we're cutting national insurance contributions.
But no denial then that some people are going to end up paying more in tax as a result of the threshold situation.
Well, the lowest earners in our country, as I say, you can earn £1,000 in this country without paying any tax because we've doubled the threshold at which you start paying tax, and we're supporting people in other ways. But we have had to make difficult decisions, as I say, since the COVID pandemic, and I think most people understand that.
OK, and just finally, because you mentioned as well the sort of long-term plan to end national insurance contributions, well, all well and good, but what do you do about that? I mean, how big's the black hole that leaves? Is it as high as 60 billion? I don't know, but it's a very big black hole that it leaves. How do you fill it?
Well, we wouldn't do it overnight, right? So these reports that suggest that we're going to do it overnight based on comments by the opposition are obviously completely incorrect. We would do this over time. It's a long-term ambition. It's quite right that government sets out a long-term direction and message to the British people as to where we want to go. But we're not going to do it by compromising our fiscal responsibility. We're not going to borrow to do it. We're going to do it when economic conditions allow. And if you just look at what we've done over the last 6 months, because we've turned a corner in inflation, got it down from 11 to 3.5% on a downward trajectory towards the target of 2%, we can do these things. We can cut taxes. We're only going to do it, though, when it's responsible to be able to execute on it.
OK, Gareth Davis, got to leave it there. Good to talk to you. Thank you.
Well, joining us now to go through the papers this morning is former government advisor Claire Pearsall and showbiz reporter Stephanie Tecci. Really good to see you both this morning. Stephanie, let's start with you, shall we? And this honey trap sex photo scandal in Westminster.
Yes, it's quite unfortunate for William Bragg, who is the vice chairman of the 1922 committee. He's come out and said that he felt weak, that this person who was blackmailing him had compromising things on him. But due to that, he gave out the numbers of at least 12 people, including MPs and some of their staff members and other journalists as well. The problem with something like this, it just goes to show how online could be deadly and can be quite dangerous in a way. When you are on these dating sites, you never know who you're actually talking to. And for him, it just seems like he's just had a moment of poor judgment here. As this story develops, I can imagine Parliament had things in place where he could have actually gone to them first, maybe, instead of giving out people's personal details. But to be honest, I'm trying not to give him the hard line here, because when you're in that kind of situation, you kind of think in short term, probably not long term. So it's quite sad the way things have ended for him. But again, when you are a public figure, you do need to be careful when you're on such sites.
Oh, Claire, I mean, it's a mess, isn't it? And you've got to have some sympathy for him to a degree. And yet, frankly, MPs should know better, shouldn't they?
They should, and I think it highlights use of dating apps we all need to be careful, but I think those in the public eye need to be more careful. There are a lot of things, as Steph has said, there are a lot of things that Parliament does. National Cyber Security Centre will put secure devices together for you, will look at the information you hold on devices, whether it be a phone or an iPad or a laptop. So there are certain things, and realistically Will should have gone to the parliamentary authorities first. However, I can see that if he's in that space where he's being essentially blackmailed by somebody, he's going to be very worried, and you want to be able to cover yourself.
Yeah.
But it does also highlight the question that some of his colleagues got these unsolicited messages and still sent photographs or images across. I think we all should learn, don't do that. Really don't. And especially if you're an MP, you have to be doubly careful.
I mean, even in schools, children are taught, aren't they, about online safety and not giving out personal information, not sending explicit photos and all that sort of stuff. It sounds as though MPs in Westminster might need schooling in online safety.
Well, it is true, because it baffles me how, you know, public figures are not thinking that photos like this can get leaked out to the newspapers or online. It's so easy.
But it's nothing new, is it? Because you've had all
Chris
of these
Bryant
things.
back in the day.
Exactly. It's something that has gone on for the dawn of time. Even before you had mobile phones with cameras, photographs were taken by long lenses. MPs have been caught in all sorts of different positions. So realistically, yes, they should have learned. And it's been one of those issues over the years that sometimes they forget who they are, where they are, and what their behaviour should be.
Claire, what's the Express saying about Rwanda flights?
Well, what the Express believe is that migrant flights will take off soon.
What do you think?
I think that no flights will take off. I mean, the Daily Express really desperately wants this to happen. I think the Prime Minister really desperately wants this to happen. And it's quite interesting in the first piece of the Express's article where it says, since Easter, there has been a real step up in preparations. Well, that was a week ago. So what haven't they been doing prior to this? Still doesn't take away that fact there are no physical planes willing to take people to Rwanda. So unless the government has magicked those up, we are still in the same position that you may well have your plan in place, but if you physically cannot transport people, then it isn't going to happen.
Yes, it's a bit of a basic.
Yeah, I feel like this will continue to be a pipe dream for Rishi Sunak, especially in what will be an election year. There's so many issues for him to deal with, and I think, you know, he's put so much focus onto Rwanda and it's not moving anywhere. So eventually he's going to have to place his focus on other things or come up with a backup plan, because if this does fail, which, sad to say, I feel like it will, how are we going to deal with this situation, and what else has Rishi got to offer the public?
Yeah.
Well, it's not good. I very much doubt it's going to be his problem for much longer, is it? I mean,
It does feel a little like
the way it's looking.
Stephanie, a positive sign, isn't it, that King Charles wants to tour Australia in October?
Yes, well, we saw King Charles last week for Easter, and, you know, he did look like he's in good spirits, and it seems like the King is still keen to get back out there in October and head to Australia for a 2-week state visit. Australia is a quite important place for the monarch to visit. The late Queen visited there 16 times.
Wow.
And King Charles has yet to go there on an official state visit. So the plan is that he will go there in October for 2 weeks. So I think this is like a good sign that he is responding positively to his cancer treatment, and that hopefully things will get back on track. But I do think, you know, King Charles is 75 years old. I do believe he can have energy at any age, but they are saying in this story here that it will be quite scaled back. He would have to have a lot of downtime. He won't be doing the full works as he usually does. But before that, he's hoping to come out for the Trooping of the Colour in June.
Yeah. Oh, well, good on him.
Oh, I just hope he doesn't take on too much.
He won't. They'll be watching him
I
very
hope
closely.
so. Yeah. Because one thing that was quite obvious over the Easter weekend, Claire, was how much he is buoyed by the crowds, by the walkabout. He really enjoys it.
Of course, and it's that sense of duty that he's got. He really wants to get out there and get back on with the job that he is there to do. And he loves to meet the crowds, and I think that was evident at the Easter service, to go around and speak to people, shake hands, and just meet the public that put so much love into him. And people come from all over the country to come and get a glimpse of the King and Queen.
Yeah.
And that is part of his life.
Let's just finish off with the star, should we? Because the moon's going to get its own time zone, Steph.
Yeah, like round the world we can know what time it is, but for these astronauts in moon, they do not know what the time is.
Is there time in space?
Well, apparently in space it's almost 56.4 seconds ahead of Earth because it's less gravity there. So the White House are putting pressure on these NASA geeks to find out what time it is on the moon when they're out there. I don't know what relevance this is going to be to us on Earth, unless we're travelling to the moon.
Well, there's got to be, if you're on the moon, the idea is obviously that we're going to have stuff on the moon on a more permanent basis, so there's got to be lunar time.
Yeah, it sounds lunar insanity to me, but hey.
And of course, it doesn't have a day as such, does it?
No, and you sort of wonder how much relevance time has. It's not as if you can go catch a bus or a train. What are they going to have different, like daylight savings time? Are they going to have to go and change the clocks twice a year?
Time's quite important when you're launching rockets, Claire.
But then NASA has that, don't they? I mean, if you're on the moon, do you need to know exactly what time it is?
Yes.
Can you not just go back to space?
Of course you need to know what time it is. You're not mad.
I would feel claustrophobic on the moon. I would feel claustrophobic in a rocket. I just want to come back to Earth.
Yeah.
No,
I don't know
not
that they'll be
space
sending
geek.
you.
I know. I'm too fabulous to go to the moon.
No, you've got to, lunar time's important, I think.
Okay.
And is there time in space? There's no...
No, I mean, the day.
Space
There's
time.
not such a thing as the day. I know. Anyway. Stephanie and Claire, thank you very much indeed. Should we take a look at the weather here on Earth with Alex?
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Another wet start for many out there today, but it should get a bit brighter through the day. Some wet weather across Scotland with some hill snow here. Some pretty grim conditions on the roads with a mixture of hill snow and heavy rain at low levels. Not very pleasant at all. That wet weather is clearing away, as is the rain from eastern England. So brightening up, certainly in the south, some sunny spells developing through this afternoon, but there will still be a fair few showers to chug through on a fairly brisk wind. That wind, though, is bringing relatively mild air, so temperatures in the sunny spells 16, 17, maybe 18. It feels cold though still across Scotland, single digits likely here, and another pulse of rain will cross Scotland through this evening and overnight. It will chiefly be rain though tonight rather than the hill snow we've seen through last night. Another area of rain then works up across the rest of the UK, and the winds continue to strengthen, particularly in the west through the early hours, but again bringing that mild air, a very mild night, lows of 10 to 12 Celsius in the south. So a warm start to the weekend, but a windy one as well, particularly so in the west. Around western coast, we have a Met Office yellow warning in place. Storm Kathleen, named by the Irish Weather Service because they will bear the brunt of the strongest winds, but nevertheless unseasonably gusty for us on Saturday. Those winds could cause some travel disruption. There will be some showers, but many places will be dry with some sunshine, and it will still be very warm, particularly in the east, over 20 degrees for the first time this year.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Julian Brett. In Cornwall, the westbound A30, we've got the exit slip closed at the Camborne West junction. That's for emergency barrier repairs. Do expect delays if you're headed that way. Worcestershire, the southbound M5, we've got a lane closed for emergency repairs here. That's from junction 8 for the M50 to junction 9 for Tewkesbury. The M48-7 bridge has a lane closed both ways because of today's very strong winds. That's from junction 2 for Chepstow to junction 1 for Ost. In Runcorn, Cheshire, the A533 Central Expressway, the northbound stretch is closed. Emergency repairs continuing here at the Bridgewater Expressway. In West Yorkshire, we've got a delay on the eastbound M62 after an accident from junction 26 for Chambers to 27 for Gildersham. There's more in 30 minutes.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
You could win our biggest prize giveaway so far. First, there's an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Plus, courtesy of Variety Cruises, a bespoke 7-night small boat cruise for two worth £10,000. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, your next holiday could be on us. Choose any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and find your home at sea. We'll also send you packing with these luxury travel gifts. For a chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 26th of April. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Morning to you. It's 7 o'clock, Friday the 5th of April. Today, the Westminster honey trap scandal. Tory MP Will Wragg admits his involvement after leaking colleagues' numbers to a man he met on a dating app.
Yes, senior Conservative William Wragg says that he is mortified and apologises profusely for giving phone numbers of fellow MPs to a sting operation trying to compromise them. I'll bring you the details shortly.
US President Joe Biden tells Benjamin Netanyahu to stop killing civilians in Gaza, begging the question, will Washington withhold arms sales to Israel?
Could a new activist group bring new disruption to our streets this spring? Just Stop Oil and the controversial group Pro-Palestine Action have joined forces. We have a GB News exclusive with Charlie Peters.
An unholy alliance between militant Gaza protesters and environmentalists will reveal a new group which has attracted the concern of the policing minister.
A survey reveals a record number of police officers are now turning to food banks in order to stay afloat. Is it time they get a pay rise?
Do you fancy going to your dentist for Botox? Well, dentists are under fire for providing that treatment amid a backlog of dental appointments.
And in the sport, Chelsea score the latest winning goal the Premier League has ever seen after 100 minutes and 39 seconds. It's about the same length of this tease I'm doing right now. To beat Manchester United, Liverpool are back on top after winning 3-1 against Sheffield United. And the diver who will never live down the opening of the Paris Olympic swimming pool as long as he lives.
Rain, hill snow, 20 Celsius possible tomorrow, and some very strong winds from a storm system. There's lots going on with the weather over the next couple of days. Join me later for a full forecast.
Morning to you, I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News. Loads of you getting in touch this morning. Stevie says, can you wish my mum Jane a very happy birthday? She watches the show every morning without fail. Can you also wish her a happy birthday before 8 a.m, please? Oh, we've managed it. Well done.
Happy birthday, Jane.
Happy birthday, Jane.
Hope you have a lovely day. John can only watch the show till 8:30 today. And
you're swanning off to different places today.
He's having his 2 digestives. He's on his way to Leicester Glenfield Hospital. Where they're going to... He's always had one of these radiation check things, look at his bones in regard to his arthritis. So best of luck to you, John. Hope that goes well.
Yeah, best of luck to you. We're also talking about the honey trap scandal in Westminster. Loads of you getting in touch on that. Joe says, call the man out for being an idiot. What did he expect? If you're going to play with fire, you will get burnt.
To be fair, Will Wragg has basically called himself an idiot for that. And it is a stupid thing to do. It's a stupid thing to do. But people get carried away.
Yeah.
Mark says if he wasn't doing anything wrong, then why is he worried about someone blackmailing him? Because he sent
explicit
compromising pictures.
Photos.
So that's what he was worried about. So it would seem from the details he's given. I think what you do need to bear in mind is he's stepping down anyway, but he's he's had some pretty serious mental health problems over the last few years. And this isn't going to help.
It's not, no. And he said so himself. He's absolutely mortified about this.
You will be. But, of course, what it does is it... And what you suspect is it's a foreign actor, as they say. Basically means someone like Russia who's doing this to try and get information. If they go through enough people, will they get the right numbers of those people who really matter? Can they do something with the phones? I don't know. It's concerning whichever way you look at it. But anyway, Will Wragg, who is the MP who's sort of behind this, if you like, has admitted to handing out those phone numbers of colleagues to someone he met on a dating app.
Yes, the Hazel Grove MP said he provided the details after sending intimate pictures of himself to the user. Wragg said he was scared that the man had compromising things on him.
Let's talk to our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, who's in Westminster. Oh, Catherine, what a mess.
What a mess indeed. Yes, William Wragg clearly hugely embarrassed by this because he met somebody on Grindr, the dating app, sent a compromising picture and was then pressurised or blackmailed into giving the phone numbers of up to a dozen other MPs and parliamentary staffers. This person then sent them flirty messages, gave them to believe that they'd met previously or whatever, pretended to be either someone called Charlie, a guy, or Abby, a girl, and asked for explicit images. Now, most of the MPs contacted ignored this, but 2 others did send explicit images. Now, William Wragg has come forward and he said they had compromising things on me. They wouldn't leave me alone. He goes on to say, I was scared. I'm mortified. I'm so sorry that my weakness has caused other people hurt. So a really heartfelt apology. But of course, questions around, well, first of all, the wisdom or otherwise of putting compromising images online when you are a public figure, something that clearly wouldn't be seen as a good idea, but also who might have done this. Now, there's a police investigation going on now. Leicestershire police involved investigating what they call malicious communication. So we don't know. But yes, it is possible that a foreign actor is involved. There is, of course, a general election looming. Countries like Russia, like China, were very happy to try to destabilise us here in the West. Meanwhile, of course, Parliament is in recess for the next couple of weeks. It is possible that William Wragg, who is a pretty well-respected Conservative MP, Vice Chair of the 1922 committee, will lose the Conservative whip. He is standing down, not standing for his seat of Hazel Grove in the next election anyway, but now a big cloud hanging over his career as a result of this.
I mean, Catherine, the concern is we don't know how many MPs have actually been targeted in this way, and you would think that if there are more, they could be too embarrassed to come forward. Do we know what kind of digital safety advice is being given to MPs?
Well, we don't have the specifics, but certainly we know that Sir Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker of the House of Commons, has written to MPs stressing to them if they have concerns, if they've done anything that they now realise was unwise, to get in touch with the Parliamentary Security Department for advice. They've also reissued guidance on, what should or should not be put out online. I think plenty of GB News viewers will think it's fairly clear that if you are a public figure, if you send explicit images, you put yourself in a very vulnerable situation. Now, of course, MPs, I think it's worth saying, they get a lot of bad rap, but they are ultimately only human. They all make mistakes, but this a really pretty big one for William Wragg. And yes, we don't know the identities of at least 2 other MPs who have done the same. Those may emerge, of course, in the coming days.
OK, Catherine, thanks very much indeed. It's worrying. It's worrying for a whole host of reasons, actually, because you never know, especially in this day and age, whatever the particulars of this case, you don't know if just what these big foreign states are trying to do now. I was always a bit sceptical about the idea that, you know, Russia would want to interfere and stuff. But what we've seen over the past 2 years with Ukraine just make you think, I don't know what they actually think they would achieve through any of that. It's like what they're doing in the States.
Well, they just hope that they get certain type of information from individuals, don't they? They think if they contact enough people, they'll get there in the end. There is a sense of alarm amongst some Tory MPs that it is China, Russia, who are behind this. But to be fair to those who've been targeted, I have been reading this morning that apparently they had very detailed knowledge of the people that they were messaging. They knew their names, the names of their partners. They talked about bars that they'd been in before. So it did sound, to those who received those messages, did sound as though they knew that person well.
Which sort of means there's been a lot of digging or a lot of surveillance, doesn't it? Which makes it sound more like a foreign actor than just an individual.
Yeah, it sounds sophisticated when you hear that level of detail, but that might help us to understand why they're trusting this person and perhaps sending them things they shouldn't be sending them.
Yes. OK, look, more on that throughout the course of the morning. Let's look now at a new activist group that could bring disruption to our streets this spring. Well, the policing minister, Chris Philp, has issued a warning after GB News revealed that a Just Stop Oil youth movement has now joined forces with the controversial activist group Palestine Action for what they're calling a resistance campaign.
Yeah, together they are calling for an end to oil and gas licences and an embargo on arms deals with Israel. Youth Demand is planning marches and unspecified action next week. Our reporter Charlie Peters has the story.
New environmental group Youth Demand is advertising upcoming marches and activities in collaboration with Palestine Action. The group started as Just Stop Oil students and is asking volunteers if they are willing to risk arrest. I met with Chiara Sarti, an organiser with the group.
We're a new campaign that is demanding that the Tories and the Labour Party commit to stopping all Tory oil and they stop selling weapons with Israel and buying weapons from Israel.
But you're also saying that they're driving another genocide by virtue of links with oil and gas.
They're allowing these fossil fuel projects to go through. When that carbon gets put in the air, it will result in the deaths of millions of people.
Why do you think that the pro-Palestine and environmental causes are linked?
If you look closely, it is the same broken political system that is driving genocide on both fronts. The Tories and Labour are driving these policies that are going to kill millions of people. They basically place no value whatsoever on human life. And we can clearly see this in Gaza. I think this clearly goes to show just how little value they place on human life, how cheap Palestinian blood is to those people.
We've also seen some slightly stronger protests and Russia's shutting down factories. And what do you make of that sort of behaviour, particularly shutting down factories associated with the Elbit system?
Yeah, we absolutely need to do everything we non-violently can to sever the links between the UK and the Israeli war machine. Absolutely.
And that includes smashing up factories, blocking sewers, breaking windows. You support all of that action?
I think we need to emotionally connect with what is happening here. 12,000 kids have been brutally murdered. I think if that's not going to get you on the streets, you basically have no values whatsoever. The next 1,000 generations are going to spit on your grave.
Well, Charlie is here in the studio this morning. I mean, it's trying to get that balance right, isn't it, Charlie, between those groups who just want to protest and those who are threatening levels of criminality.
And that's the concern that's been raised about this new group that we've revealed and the collaboration they're planning with Palestine Action, with the policing minister, Chris Philp, saying that criminality has no place on our streets. And he's issuing that concern because of the group that Youth Demand is collaborating with, Palestine Action. Several of their members have been in and out of court. There have been dozens of arrests in the last year on some of the direct action that they've conducted. That's included smashing up windows and infiltrating factories typically associated with military technology companies that have a relationship with Israel. Now, this new group, Youth Demand, say that they are non-violent, but they are now collaborating with this group from next week. They're advertising that that link will take place formally on Wednesday. As you can understand, they're not giving away any details of what that will involve. But there are also other concerns about the nature of this relationship. Does this represent a broader, growing link between pro-Palestine groups and environmentalists? Because this group, Youth Demand, they're calling for an end to genocide, as they put it, from the Rosebank oil fields to the West Bank in Palestine. They are connecting those two perspectives in their activism. I mean, many of the critics that I've spoken to about this new group and this collaboration say that they're actually latching on to the crisis in the Middle East to get their perspective back on the airwaves. But regardless of how they're campaigning or the nature of how they're getting their message out there are these concerns about the new links that they have with this group, which is currently being assessed as to whether or not it could be extremist.
Are you noticing a growing trend between environmental groups and pro-Palestinian protesters? Because to outsiders, it seems like quite a random alliance with quite broad political aims. You know, stopping oil and gas licenses is very different to stopping an arms deal in Israel.
So I say this is the main new link between these groups, but there are several other broader trends taking place here between what Lord Wolney, the government's independent advisor on political violence and disruption, has said is an unholy alliance between militant Gaza protesters and environmentalist groups. Now, as part of this trend I've been looking into, we're going to release a documentary for the membership on the GB News website later today, which will be looking into links between the far left in the eco space and indeed on the pro-Palestinian cause, looking at to what extent those connections could radicalise and see fresh disruption or possibly also violent vandalism taking place this spring and later into the summer.
Okay. Charlie, for now, thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, Youth Demand have told us in a statement that Chris Philp is right, that criminality has no place on our streets, but it also should have no place in the corridors of power. Sadly, that is not the case at the moment, they say. People of all political persuasions are seeing that politics is failing us and that our leaders are more interested in enriching themselves rather than protecting ordinary people. Young people are not content to have criminals running the country. Palestine Action are yet to get back to us.
Now, President Biden has called for an immediate ceasefire following a tense phone call between the Israeli Prime Minister and the American President.
Yes, during the 30-minute conversation, Netanyahu also promised to open 2 new aid corridors into Gaza in the first such talks since Israel killed 7 aid workers on Monday.
Let's get the thoughts of US political analyst Eric Ham, who joins us now. Morning, Eric. Obviously, the United States is a key ally of Israel. How likely is it now that President Biden has had this conversation that will affect what is going on in Israel and Gaza?
Well, I think for the first time, we're beginning to see a dramatic change in the Biden administration, particularly how it speaks of Israel. We've already seen and heard President Biden call for an immediate ceasefire, something that we know has already been a complete 180 from this administration, as we know that there have been a number of UN Security Council memorandums that they have actually vetoed or would not support because of that call. But now we see this killing of 7 aid workers is clearly a bridge too far. And now with a tremendous pressure, particularly on President Biden, we're now seeing a massive change as the president of the United States is now finally confronting Benjamin Netanyahu on their continued adjudication of this war.
Eric, this is a sign of a growing chasm, isn't it, between Israel and its closest ally. How much of this do you think is just rhetoric from Biden? That's what he's been criticised of doing. Or do you think this is genuinely a turning point in this relationship?
Well, that's a really good question, because we know that the Biden administration has said or else. But of course, there have been growing questions about what does or else mean and what role is the United States prepared to play. We know that there have been threats that there will be a change in U.S. policy. But of course, we know that just recently there was a sale of $3.5 billion in military aid to Israel. And we know that just in addition to that, there has been an additional $18 billion of weapons that the United States is prepared to send to Israel. So it doesn't appear as though there's an actionable change, but now we see there's been actually blunt talk that has actually taken place between the two principals. And clearly it's enough to have actually moved Benjamin Netanyahu. But of course, we still have not seen an actual noticeable policy difference from the Biden administration. But clearly, Israel has actually gotten the message, apparently.
OK, Eric, really good to talk to you this morning. Thank you. Oh, Dick, I thought everything's a mess. Everything's just a mess at the moment. Does it get you down? I've had so many people say to me lately, I'm so fed up with the news. Everything's negative. Everything drags you down. At least we've got the benefit of observing most of it and we're not in a war zone. We're not having to cope with the reality of those situations. But it is just grim.
It really is.
It becomes relentless, actually, I think.
It really, really is.
Oh, dear.
Well, we do try and offer you something else as well as all the grim news. We do have our lovely paper reviewers with us today. We've got Stephanie and Claire. We'll try and brighten your spirits a little bit there.
We're going to talk about biscuits.
We're going to talk about biscuits. We're going to have the sport with Paul Coit. So I promise you there are some brighter things in our programme as well. And hopefully the weather's going to brighten up as well. Should we take a look at it with Alex?
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Another wet start for many out there today, but it should get a bit brighter through the day. Some wet weather across Scotland with some hill snow here. Some pretty grim conditions on the roads with a mixture of hill snow and heavy rain at low levels. Not very pleasant at all. That wet weather is clearing away, as is the rain from eastern England. So brightening up, certainly in the south, some sunny spells developing through this afternoon, but there will still be a fair few showers to chug through on a fairly brisk wind. That wind, though, is bringing relatively mild air, so temperatures in the sunny spells 16, 17, maybe 18. It feels cold though still across Scotland, single digits likely here, and another pulse of rain will cross Scotland through this evening and overnight. It will chiefly be rain though tonight rather than the hill snow we've seen through last night. Another area of rain then works up across the rest of the UK, and the winds continue to strengthen, particularly in the west through the early hours, but again bringing that mild air, a very mild night, lows of 10 to 12 Celsius in the south. So a warm start to the weekend, but a windy one as well, particularly so in the west. Around western coast, we have a Met Office yellow warning in place. Storm Kathleen, named by the Irish Weather Service because they will bear the brunt of the strongest winds, but nevertheless unseasonably gusty for us on Saturday. Those winds could cause some travel disruption. There will be some showers, but many places will be dry with some sunshine, and it will still be very warm, particularly in the east, over 20 degrees for the first time this year.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now it's our biggest giveaway of the year so far. This is a cracker. You could win a £10,000 Greek cruise for two.
But that's not it, is it?
No.
Also £10,000 worth of cash and a whole host of luxury travel gifts.
I wonder what they are.
Well, I know that Ray-Bans are in there.
Oh.
That's all I've paid attention to so far. But there's lots more. And your 2025 holiday could therefore be on us. Here's all the details you need to enter.
You could win our biggest prize giveaway so far. First, there's an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Plus, courtesy of Variety Cruises, a bespoke 7-night small boat cruise for two worth £10,000. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, your next holiday could be on us. Choose any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and find your home at sea. We'll also send you packing with these luxury travel gifts. For a chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 26th of April. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yes, good luck indeed.
Yes, Ray-Bans, headphones and a Kindle-y sort of thing.
That's quite good, isn't it? And that Greek cruise looks more like a Greek yacht. So
It is just...
you need to be in it to win it.
Lovely. Right, OK, from that lovely bit of dreaming, could be yours, to back to reality coming up, with more police officers apparently turning to food banks. Do we need to look at simply paying them more? We'll debate that in just a minute.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task. This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me. My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country. That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, this is a new one, talking about setting up food banks for police recruits, as 1 in 10 admit to relying on handouts.
Yes, figures show that record numbers of police are struggling with food poverty and turned to food banks last year as wages stagnated.
Well, according to a survey of more than 6,000 serving police officers, 1 in 5 have to miss meals.
So we're asking you this morning, is it time to pay the police more? Well, joining us now is former police officer and host of the Protect and Serve podcast, Oliver Lawrence, and former Metropolitan Police Detective Chief Inspector Mike Neville. Very good to see you both this morning. Oliver, let's start with you, shall we? And you think that we should pay police officers more in order to retain them?
Yeah, good morning, Ellie. Good morning, Stephen. Yeah, retention and recruitment is one of the biggest challenges facing policing across the nation. Unless we start having serious discussions, which Mike and I have had in the past, and paying our officers properly, we're going to struggle to recruit, we're going to struggle to retain, and we're going to lose good people, which will ultimately impact our communities as crime soars and we struggle to get police to deal with the significant issues our communities face.
What do you think of that, Mike?
Well, I think when you join the police, of course, the wages aren't a secret. You're told what you're going to get paid. And I don't think anybody joins the police to become rich. You join the police to serve the community, like you become a nurse. I think one of the problems here is when I was a young recruit, is it was like the army. You went to a sort of training centre, and every day you had 3 square meals. So when you were paid the least amount of money, the food was free. And when you got out to the police station, of course, your money went up, and there was opportunities to earn overtime, which when I was in the police was a sort of obsession with many officers. And with all the demonstrations we see, there's lots of overtime available. Now, of course, we all want everybody to be paid the right amount. But as I say, when you join the police, it's all about serving the community. If they've got enough money, then if people need to be taught how to use that money. But I do think it's a problem at the lowest level where now you don't go to a big training centre and get your 3 square meals. You're expected to buy it all yourself. And that is probably an issue.
Oliver, what do you make of that? I mean, being a police officer is a vocation, like being a teacher or being a nurse, and none of those jobs, unfortunately, are not paid well.
No, I totally agree with that, Ellie. And you know, there are sayings such as service over self, and I take all that on board, and that's all important. But, you know, policing and the officers in amongst that vocation are not immune to the cost of living crisis. They have bills to pay, they have mouths to feed. You know, with poor pay also comes the inherent challenges and the dangers of officers then pursuing lines of accruing money into their lives, which could be seen as illicit. So it does increase several other risk factors in the community if we don't start looking properly at paying our police officers. You know, I see it every day, sadly, with some of the welfare groups that I'm part of up and down this country, officers reaching out, you know, tragically in circumstances where they worry, pay for pay, how they're going to feed their families, how they're going to pay their bills, and then looking at jobs outside of policing which pay far more. And it'll be an absolute tragedy if we don't start having serious conversations about how much we pay our police officers, and we can respect them for the type of work that they're doing.
Well, I'm just looking, though, and look, you can tell me if I'm wrong on this, Mike, you'll know this. Online, the Met says starting salary of £36,775, going up £1,000 at week 30, going up to nearly £40,000 after 2 years. Salary will increase each year up to over £54,000 within 7 years. But does that sound about right? Because that's not a low wage.
If that's a question for me, Stephen, of course, that isn't a low wage. You know, my wife, my daughter, they're both nurses and they're on comparable money. That's London, of course, and out in the counties that...
Oh, we've lost Mike, unfortunately. Oliver, what do you think about that?
Yeah, you know, those wages are comparable. We're talking about the entry-level wages coming into policing here. They are a huge challenge in terms of how low they are. I think that's where we really need to be capturing the thoughts and the insights of young people who then see policing as an attractive vocation. If we see the loss in not only police pay, but also pensions since, you know, 10, 14 years ago when Theresa May made some significant cuts to policing, the dynamics and the vocation has changed quite dramatically in the sense it was once an incredibly attractive 30-year career. We're now having people join for less than 5 years and then moving on to something far more attractive in the private sector. So we do need to have a serious conversation about those early level ranks when people come in to a far more attractive salary to keep them for the long term, because retention and consistency in the people that we have on our front lines are incredibly important, ensuring the community gets the service that they deserve.
Okay. Oliver Lawrence, good to talk to you this morning, and Mike Neville, who we were chatting to before his line went. Thank you both very much indeed. Love your thoughts on that.
Yes.
Do you know what? Oliver makes a really good point. You know, and it sounds, when you listen to him, it sounds great. I would have agreed with him if I hadn't looked up the figures.
Yeah.
And this is according to the Met Police website, starting salary nearly £37,000. On promotion to the next rank, sergeant, you can earn over £57,000. Most officers, it says, apply for sergeant after 5 years as a constable, at which point you'll be on between £39,000 and £41,000.
Yeah.
That's not a small salary.
It's not too bad, is it? And you get good benefits as well in terms of free transport in London. You get a good pension. There are those things to consider as well. But should we be, you know, seeing our police officers go to food banks We've heard it being done with teachers, haven't we, and nurses going to food banks.
But I don't know why they're going to food banks if they're earning 37 grand a year when as a starting salary. Why are you going to food banks on that? I mean, I know it's London, accommodation is expensive and all the rest of it. I know, I'm not sort of saying it should never happen, the food banks thing with that. But it's not like they're on 20 grand a year and having to fund everything out of that. I think they're on very nearly double that.
Yeah.
So
if you're a police officer, let us know.
I do wonder if people these days, and again, is this me being totally unreasonable, but people these days who expect to earn these sort of huge sums of money.
But do you need to earn those huge sums of money now to live in this economy?
No. No, you don't. And I think a lot of people have these high expectations. They say, well, of course I've got to pay my, £60 a month for Sky. I might be paying £70 a month for my mobile contract with all the Xboxes and all that. What happened to cutting your cloth?
Yeah.
A little bit.
What if you don't have a choice, though? What if your rent is £2,000 a month?
Well, find somewhere cheaper.
Oh, it's been very tough this morning.
Well, I wouldn't pay it.
No, but you might not have a choice.
Well,
you can't get housing especially in this part of the country.
I'd find somewhere cheaper.
All right. Well, let us know what you think. We're being shouted at to move on. So, sport next with Paul Coyte. Do stay with us. That's next.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Julian Brett. In Kent, the eastbound M2, we've got an overturned car blocking the carriageway from junction 5 for Sittingbourne to junction 6 for Faversham. Now, obviously, that's really snulled up the usual morning queues headed that way. Berkshire now, the westbound M4, we've got a broken down car blocking a lane at the moment. That's from junction 10 for Wokingham and Bracknell to junction 11 for Reading. In Worcestershire, the southbound M5, a lane is closed for emergency repairs from junction 8 for the M50 to junction 9 for Tewkesbury. Looking into Derbyshire, the southbound M1, all traffic is being held at the moment. There's been an accident at junction 30 for Worksop. In Runcorn, the Central Expressway is closed northbound for emergency repairs at the Bridgewater Expressway. There's more in half an hour.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task. This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country. That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Paul Coyte is here. Take us through all the sport.
My goodness, what a game it was yesterday.
Oh, yes, very good.
It was a cracker. In fact, I'd say it was a humdinger. I would. I never use that very often.
No.
Chelsea 4, Manchester United 3. you know, Man United fans obviously just hate this today because it should have been Manchester United 3, Chelsea 2. So Chelsea went 2 up, and then Manchester United came back in the first half, 2-2 after the first half. Then United score. So you're thinking, there's a lot of Chelsea fans who were leaving towards the end because they're thinking, you know, we were 2-0 up for crying out loud. Now we're 3-2 down, and it's never over until, well...
The fat lady sings.
Well, I was going to say a large-boned woman would start doing songs. But... because you have to be careful these days. But anyway, 90th odd minute. I mean, it was actually the longest...
big-boned woman, I think you'd have to say now.
Oh, yes, OK. But anyway, 90... It went to 90 plus 10. Then there was a penalty. Cole Palmer scores the penalty to make it then 3-3. And then 1 minute later, Chelsea score again.
See, that's cracking.
It really was. I mean... it's those old cliches for the neutral, for a Manchester United fan. It was horrendous for Chelsea fans, especially the ones that were walking down the King's Road thinking, oh, cool, we lost again. And then they hear the cheers. But it was an incredible game. Cole Palmer, he does this celebration. And also Cole Palmer, who's a terrific young player. But, I mean, 2 penalties and a deflection. It's a hat-trick. You know, a hat-trick's a hat-trick, but even so. And he does this celebration, which is like... It's cold Palmer.
Oh, get a grip.
It's a bit lame, isn't it?
What's wrong with these
cold
people?
Palmer. So that's his
So he shivers.
Yeah, and it's, cold Palmer. I think it needs some work, don't you?
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, it was
they need a bit of... They need someone with a bit of artistic... to go on no, no, I'm useless.
No, yeah,
like
they need
someone
anyway, Liverpool, they beat Sheffield United 3-1. So they're top again, and so we go into the weekend as we were. So Liverpool, then Arsenal, then Man City.
OK.
Where are Spurs?
Spurs are in 5th at the moment, just behind Aston Villa, and Manchester United 8 points below them, or actually 9 points now.
I'd just like to check in. And how is Nadal? Talking about
Nadal
He's
is...
injured.
Crocked. Yes, it's not looking so good for Rafa Nadal. That's the thing with tennis players of a certain age. We know who we're talking about, but 37-year-old Rafa Nadal, 14-time French Open champion, pulled out the Monte Carlo Masters, which is on clay, which is his favourite surface. 4th consecutive tournament he's pulled out. You've got to worry. I think he's going to retire, certainly by the end of the season, but it's just how many tournaments he's going to be able to play in.
He's still young, isn't he?
37.
Yeah, 37.
No age.
There we are. That's him. He's not actually laying down for the photograph. He's laying down because he's injured. That's actually what he's doing there.
I love the fact it says his body simply won't allow him to play. I know the feeling.
I do as well. Yes, yeah. I do. But the thing is, we need to talk about the Olympics. The Olympics are coming up. Very excited about the Olympics. Have a look at this. We have the Olympic pool. Let's have a look at the pool, the new aquatic centre, which is just north of Paris. I can tell. Look at that.
Oh, here we
Isn't that beautiful?
Look at that.
I know you love an aquatic centre. It's 5,000 spectators, opened by President Macron yesterday. But they have a little demonstration. They had some divers. And the thing is, Olympic diver Alex Janard.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, look on the right. There he goes. Oh! Have another go. I want to see this 100 times. He represented France in the Tokyo Olympics. Alex, what's gone on?
That's got to hurt. He hit the board on the way down.
What hurt more? Is his bum or his ego? Here he goes again in his new Olympic trunks. Oh, dear. What do you give him? 1.0 for effort there.
Must be easy done, though. They must be wet.
Straight off to the guillotine.
I think he probably will be, and he's never going to live that down, is he?
Oh, what a shame.
I know.
God love him. Was the president watching?
The president was watching.
Oh, no.
The president was watching.
It's one of those other lads.
Yeah.
They buttered that board, didn't they?
Do you reckon?
Well, they did.
Do you reckon they buttered the board? I didn't know they did board buttering.
Oh, they do.
Do they really?
I bet that's what a poor lad.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, very, 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 very unfortunate. But I hope he gets to compete in the Olympics, and we wish him well, but obviously not as good as some of our divers. But
he's probably a bit sore this morning.
Someone got a tub of President.
Very good. Très bon, Steven.
Out of the supermarché.
Oh, very good. Yeah. Le cahier est sur la table. That's the exercise book. It's on the table. It's the only bit of French I know. I've never had to use it, but I was hoping that maybe one day.
Formidable.
Oh, bonjour.
Now's your moment.
Tout le monde. Grand bouffon.
Tout le monde. Dans la piscine.
None of that language here, thank you very much.
Oh, excellent. Oh, it's a nightmare. Oh, we've got another hour with you, yeah.
I'll tell you what, you wait till the Olympics start, I'm going to be a nightmare, really.
Brilliant.
I haven't been moving in.
Can't wait.
Stay with us. Next week, Making the News with Claire and Stephanie. That's next.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
When I was president of the Durham Union, back in 2016-17, I was hosting a debate, which was the question, this House sees China as a threat to the West. Now, it wasn't saying that that's what we believed. That was a question.
Up for debate.
On one side, we had the former Foreign Secretary, Sir Malcolm Rifkind. On the other side, we invited a woman by the name of Anastasia Lin. Now, she's someone who's been expelled from China for her human rights activism. She's a former Miss World contestant who's a great speaker. But we started getting loads of complaints into my inbox from Chinese students at Durham University, and they started to say, why are you hosting this debate? Why have you invited Anastasia Lin? She is banned from China. You can't host this woman. You can't host her. You can't have her
Were they copy
in your
and paste
debate.
jobs?
They were all very, very similar. And we were sort of thinking, well, this is a union that is hundreds of years old, founded on the principles of free speech. We're not going to listen because some students are upset. And then it got to the point where I was pulled out of a tutorial that I was in, told to go to the union office and take a phone call from the Chinese embassy. And so I was taking a phone call here from diplomats in the Chinese embassy saying, you have to cancel this debate. You have to cancel this debate.
Crazy.
At one point, they even threatened the UK's trade terms with China. I think they thought that I was perhaps a representative of the British state. I wasn't. I was a student. But I ignored them and I said, no, we're going to host this debate. We hosted the debate. It was a massive success. We heard strong arguments on either side. And frankly...
You know what, it's a good thing that you were there to make sure that your university and its union upheld the values of Britain and our liberal democracy.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task. This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was you, Dom.
I was looking at you. I thought you could lead us.
Oh, well, I will. I'll lead you and guide you with Claire Pearsall, former government advisor, and showbiz reporter Stephanie Tetchy, who are here to take us through the papers this morning. What are we starting with?
Well, this one's caught my eye, Stephanie. Mother and father are now seen as oppressive words.
Oh, my gosh. I don't know what kind of world we're kind of heading to, but there's this taxpayer-funded aid organisation called Scotland's International Development Alliance, and they're saying that we should avoid using words such as mother, father, girls, guys, and they're saying that these terms are quite oppressive. They said they reinforce existing power structures that have to convey respect, and also
structure in our household was our mother's in charge.
Thank you. And they're saying that we should be using words instead such as parent or guardian. There's no way I could call my mum parent.
Got a big beep.
Oh, is it me?
No, I do. Apologise, we've got a lot of tone. Try and ignore the tone. We're getting rid of it.
But yeah, there's no way I could call my mum or dad parent, come here. I just think, why waste taxpayers' money into things like this? It's just making a problem where there is no problem. You know, I think it's actually good to have that respect of calling your mother mother or your father father. Yeah. So it makes no sense, and I think...
I mean, I tend to say mother and father.
Do you? You do, actually. You do. Yeah, it was always one of those, as you grew up, so I always used to say mum, and then as you grow up, you say mother, and you do it in a slightly jokey way, and my child has picked up on that as well. I used to be mummy for years and years, and now I'm not. I am just mother.
Yeah,
I like sort of look.
I like it. Mother's Day. We're not allowed Mother's Day anymore, then, or Father's Day.
And I just don't understand why there's this, you know, almost conspiracy or this campaign to get rid of gendered terms. I think it's sometimes there's signs of words of endearment, but the company organisation says they're not trying to ban these words, but they just want to think of terms which are more appropriate.
Right. You'll have an opinion on that one. Yeah, how much more appropriate is mother or father?
Yeah. Or girl or boy.
Girl or boy. Descriptive terms that we're going to ban now. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
That is ridiculous, frankly. Claire, what's going on in terms of misogyny and sexism in boys and young men? This is in The Guardian this morning.
Yeah, I think this is quite interesting. This is the leader of the largest education union has called for an independent inquiry into the rise in misogyny in boys and young men, but saying it should not be left to parents and schools to police. Now, I disagree with that part of it, because I think primarily this stems from behaviour in the home. And how somebody is brought up as to how they behave. But also, I think that schools really do have a place, because children will always act differently when they're away from their parents, when they're with their friends, when they're in those kind of really high-stress environments, such as a school. Their behaviour is sometimes appalling, and it needs to be called out. So, I mean, I don't know if this is necessarily a rise in misogyny or we're just better at noticing it.
I don't know, there has been it's the Andrew Tate thing.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people talk about Andrew Tate, and some people defend him. I decided to investigate myself and have a look at it. Well, just by looking at his Twitter feed.
Yeah.
I mean,
Did you put him on mute?
I mean, honestly, I was appalled by some of the things he was saying about women. But he's got loads of women who support him, which is what I find totally confusing.
Definitely, but I agree with Claire. I think it stems from what boys are seeing at home in terms of, you know, as an older woman, when I do meet a man who I see is quite aggressive towards women or is sexist, I realise it probably stems from his childhood and how his interactions were with his mother, or how his father treated his mother. And I think as well in the classrooms, it's not in the curriculum where we examine that interaction between boys and girls, because that's where it all stems from as well, how boys are treated, taught how to respect women.
You're not an older woman.
Yeah, don't just fight with
stop it. Stop it. I'm a medium chicken.
Another point to make here is that we do know that children, young boys especially, they are accessing with smartphones porn at a really young age. I mean, you're hearing of boys as young as 9, 10, accessing explicit photos and videos online. And that will be feeding into this misogyny that they are digesting. It will, and there is a place for a clampdown with the big tech firms as to how they manage their platforms, what content they have available. But again, this comes back to the fact that parents are putting a phone into a young person's hand. Are they putting parental controls? And trust me, that's not easy. You're really, really seriously unpopular with your child when you do it. But there has to be a sense of responsibility being taken. You can ask the government to do some stuff, you can look at big tech, but really, if you're the parent, that's down to you.
Yeah.
And children are just too smart these days. I think from the age of about 6 or 7, they can work out how to get rid of those parental locks and just figure out to access the content they want. So this is where, you know, I think fathers need to have that really good conversation with their sons and daughters to see how they are both interacting with both sexes as they're growing up.
Now, here's something for you, Stephanie.
Ooh.
Here's a question for tonight, Stephanie. Will you choose Stephen from Cumbria, Ellie from Essex, or Claire from Kent?
Can I have all 3?
His Blind Date is coming back.
Blind Date is back. So, you know, we've seen on TV there's just been this revival of shows coming back, such as Gladiators, and behind this has been Dan Baldwin, who's married to Holly Willoughby. And he done a recent interview, and he said that the next thing on his list is Blind Date. And he's hoping it wouldn't come back back to ITV, where Cilla Black hosted it for 18 years. It was such a classic show. I absolutely loved it. It was more likely we'll be going on to BBC, and maybe with Claudia Winkleman presenting the show. It did come back came back in 2017 on Channel 5 when Paul O'Grady hosted it for 2 years. So I think it will be a good show to have back on.
That sounds great. I'd watch that.
It's Saturday night entertainment, and I think, you know, a lot of TV execs are finding that the old stuff works with viewers at home, you know.
If it ain't broke.
Except, I don't know, because Bradley Walsh, and I think it's Bradley Walsh doing it. I love Bradley Walsh, but they're bringing back Blankety Blank with him, and I saw them. They did like a pilot series of that, and it was awful.
And that's the problem, isn't it? When something was such a favourite, and I mean, I remember watching that years and years ago, and you had Terry Wogan.
Oh, yeah.
It was just one of the best, just the ultimate presenter of that show.
Yeah.
And there've been a sort of a number of different people, but they've all sort of put their own spin on it, and I'm not sure that you can bring that back. It's a little bit nostalgic.
Yeah.
And then when you don't want somebody to spoil it, and I do worry a bit with Blind Date. It was one of those programmes.
Cilla's Black programme, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cilla Black was sort of made that show, and we all tuned in and we all watched it, and it was the conversation of the day following. But is it going to ruin it? And I really worry.
Yeah.
I don't know. We shall see. You never know. It might be a huge hit.
With a new generation.
Well, this is a new generation. I'd like to see Celebrity Squares back, but I always liked Celebrity Squares. Anyway, right. See you two a little bit later on. Thank you very much indeed. Here's your weather.
Let's look at the weather.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Another wet start for many out there today, but it should get a bit brighter through the day. Some wet weather across Scotland with some hill snow here. Some pretty grim conditions on the roads with a mixture of hill snow and heavy rain at low levels. Not very pleasant at all. That wet weather is clearing away, as is the rain from eastern England. So brightening up, certainly in the south, some sunny spells developing through this afternoon, but there will still be a fair few showers to chug through on a fairly brisk wind. That wind, though, is bringing relatively mild air, so temperatures in the sunny spells 16, 17, maybe 18. It feels cold though still across Scotland, single digits likely here, and another pulse of rain will cross Scotland through this evening and overnight. It will chiefly be rain though tonight rather than the hill snow we've seen through last night. Another area of rain then works up across the rest of the UK, and the winds continue to strengthen, particularly in the west through the early hours, but again bringing that mild air, a very mild night, lows of 10 to 12 Celsius in the south. So a warm start to the weekend, but a windy one as well, particularly so in the west. Around western coast, we have a Met Office yellow warning in place. Storm Kathleen, named by the Irish Weather Service because they will bear the brunt of the strongest winds, but nevertheless unseasonably gusty for us on Saturday. Those winds could cause some travel disruption. There will be some showers, but many places will be dry with some sunshine, and it will still be very warm, particularly in the east, over 20 degrees for the first time this year.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News. The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Julian Brett. In Kent, the eastbound M2, a lane is closed after a car overturned. That's from junction 5 for Sittingbourne to 6 for Faversham. Very, very slow on the approach there. Anti-clockwise M25 coming through Berkshire. We've got a broken down car blocking a lane at junction 15 for the M4. Those queues are back to junction 16 for the M40. In Worcestershire, the southbound M5 has a lane closed for emergency repairs. That's from junction 8 for the M50 to junction 9 for Tewkesbury. In Derbyshire, the southbound M1 also has a lane shut. That's down to an accident at junction 30 for Worksop. And in West Yorkshire, busy for the eastbound M62 after an accident. That's looking slow between junction 26 for Chain Bar and junction 27 for Gilderson. There's more in half an hour.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
With thanks to Variety Cruises, a family company sailing since 1942, you have the chance to win a £10,000 7-night small boat cruise for two. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, you'll be able to choose from any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and explore Greece like never before. Plus, you'll also win £10,000 in tax-free cash to make your summer sizzle. And we'll pack you off with these luxury travel gifts. For a chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 26th of April. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
Affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. 8 o'clock, Friday the 5th of April. Today, the Westminster honey trap scandal. Tory MP Will Wragg admits his involvement after leaking colleagues' numbers to a man he met on a dating app.
Yes, William Wragg says he is mortified and apologises profusely, but concerns around security. I'll bring you the details shortly.
US President Joe Biden tells Benjamin Netanyahu to stop killing civilians in Gaza, begging the question, will Washington withhold arms sales to Israel?
Could a new activist group bring more disruption to our streets this spring? Just Stop Oil and Palestinian Action join forces. We've got a GB News exclusive with Charlie Peters.
It's been branded as an unholy alliance between militant Gaza protesters and environmentalists. I'll reveal a group which Policing Minister Chris Philp has said has no space for criminality on the streets.
Fillings before fillers. Dentists under fire after providing patients with Botox treatments amid a backlog of dental appointments.
And in the sport this morning, Chelsea score the latest winning goal in the Premier League. Well, actually, the Premier League has ever seen. 100 minutes and 39 seconds to beat Manchester United. Liverpool back on top after winning 3-1 against Sheffield United. And the diver who will never live down the opening of the Paris Olympics swimming pool as long as he lives.
Rain, hill snow, 20 Celsius possible tomorrow, and some very strong winds from a storm system. There's lots going on with the weather over the next couple of days. Join me later for a full forecast.
Good morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
All right. We were talking about food banks and the police earlier on. Lots of you getting in touch.
Yeah, should we pay police more was the question. Lisa says it's a vocation. Their pay is above national average and they contribute to a great pension, with the Treasury paying in a huge chunk that kicks in at 55. Perhaps they just need lessons in money management.
John says, I thought you had to be on benefits to claim food at food banks. How come police can claim food at food banks when they're earning? Pensioners on the low state income, a low state pension, can't.
Yeah, loads of you making the same point. Sandra says pensioners are living and paying bills on far less than the average police wage. We don't have to use food banks. Are you kidding us here? That's what she says.
Yeah, Carol says, whilst I agree people need a cost of living rise, because people think they're just paid too little, but where is all this money coming from? And that's a really valid point. And they always say to people, well, nurses need to be paid more. Well, that comes out of our pocket. Or even in private businesses, well, they all need to be paid more. Well, OK, we'll all have to pay more for our goods then and pay more in taxes, but it's all never ends. I mean, I'm not saying they shouldn't necessarily be paid more, but I'm just saying you can't just say it.
Yeah, it's got to be budgeted for, hasn't it? Got to come from somewhere.
Yes, it has. That's all down to politicians, of course, and business leaders. And politicians aren't always that sensible, sadly.
No. Well, that leads us on to our next story, our top story this morning. Conservative MP William Wragg has admitted to handing out personal phone numbers of colleagues to a man that he met on a dating app.
Yeah, the MP said he provided the details after sending intimate pictures of himself. Mr Wragg said he was scared that the man had compromising things on him.
Well, earlier on, we got the thoughts of the Secretary to the Treasury, Gareth Davies.
Is extremely troubling and worrying for anybody to hear this kind of activity takes place. Will Wragg has, as you referred to, apologised for the action he took, but took in a set of circumstances that I think many could potentially sympathise with, in that he felt compromised and acted in a way that he thought appropriate, but has clearly apologise for that activity. I would just say to anybody watching that feels that they're in a similar position, if they ever feel like they're being compromised or blackmailed, they should report that to the police.
Let's talk to our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, who's in Westminster for us this morning. I mean, this is unfortunate on a whole host of levels. I mean, you've got to say, this looks like out-and-out blackmail.
Yes, it does really, doesn't it? And William Wragg, who's been quite a senior Conservative MP, he's vice chair of the 1922 committee, is clearly mortified and has apologised profusely. Basically, he met somebody on the dating app Grindr. He later sent them an explicit image, and then further down the line, they pressured him into sending the phone numbers of up to 12 other MPs and parliamentary staffers. This unknown person then contacted them, posing as either a man called Charlie or a girl called Abby, making out that they'd met previously, exchanging flirty messages and trying to get explicit images sent in return. Now, most of the MPs battered these away, but another two, we understand, did send explicit photographs back. So William Wragg, for his part, saying they had compromising things on me. They wouldn't leave me alone. I told them to stop. And goes on to say, I've hurt people by being weak. I was scared. I'm mortified. I'm so sorry that my weakness has caused other people hurt. Now, William Wragg, MP for Hazel Grove in Stockport since 2015, is in fact one of the dozens and dozens of Conservative MPs standing down at the next election. Questions now whether he may lose the whip over this. There is a police investigation going on. Leicestershire police are investigating what they call malicious communications. Parliament's in recess for a week or two, so we wouldn't expect anything to happen any time soon. But, you know, it is worth bearing in mind, of course, it was foolish. People in the public eye need to be extremely mindful of what they put out. But they are all people, of course, MPs, just like the rest of us. William Wragg has had struggles with mental health in the past. So this is obviously an extremely difficult time for him personally.
It certainly is, Catherine, and we were hearing this morning that whoever this person was, whether it was an individual or a foreign actor or a foreign body, they did have detailed knowledge of their targets, personal information that might help to explain why these MPs were so trusting and sending over things that perhaps they shouldn't have been. But it does raise questions, doesn't it, Catherine, about who is behind this, whether it be a foreign body, an actor or an individual, and how many MPs have actually been targeted by this? Because we can hear William Ragg talk about how embarrassed he feels, and we can imagine that if other people have been targeted, they might be too embarrassed to come forward.
Yes, we don't really know at this point how far this goes. We know that he's said about 12 people, but as you say, there could be many more involved who've also effectively been blackmailed. Now, the parliamentary authorities, they have a security department. Lindsay Hoyle, the leader of the House, has written to MPs saying if they have concerns, contact the security department. They also give guidance on what MPs should or should not be sharing on social media. So no, we don't know how far this goes, and we don't know ultimately who this person or persons alleging to be Charlie or Abby are. And some concerns, of course, that this could be hostile states, China, Russia, interfering in our democracy, trying to destabilise the United Kingdom ahead of the looming general election. We don't know, but I imagine there'll be quite a bit more of this story still to come.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Catherine Forster there for us in Westminster. Thank you very much indeed.
Now, there's concern about a new activist group and the potential of more disruption on our streets this spring. The Policing Minister, Chris Philp, has issued a warning after GB News revealed that the Just Stop Oil youth movement has joined forces with the controversial activist group Palestine Action for a so-called resistance campaign.
Well, together, they're calling for an end to oil and gas licences and an embargo on arms deals with Israel. Youth Demand is planning marches and unspecified action next week. Our reporter Charlie Peters has the story.
New environmental group Youth Demand is advertising upcoming marches and activities in collaboration with Palestine Action. The group started as Just Stop Oil students and is asking volunteers if they are willing to risk arrest. I met with Chiara Sarti, an organiser with the group.
We're a new campaign that is demanding that the Tories and the Labour Party commit to stopping all Tory oil and they stop selling weapons with Israel and buying weapons from Israel.
But you're also saying that they're driving another genocide by virtue of links with oil and gas.
They're allowing these fossil fuel projects to go through. When that carbon gets put in the air, it will result in the deaths of millions of people.
Why do you think that the pro-Palestine and environmental causes are linked?
If you look closely, it is the same broken political system that is driving genocide on both fronts. The Tories and Labour are driving these policies that are going to kill millions of people. They basically place no value whatsoever on human life. And we can clearly see this in Gaza. I think this clearly goes to show just how little value they place on human life, how cheap Palestinian blood is to those people.
We've also seen some slightly stronger protests and Russia's shutting down factories. And what do you make of that sort of behaviour, particularly shutting down factories associated with the Elbit system?
Yeah, we absolutely need to do everything we non-violently can to sever the links between the UK and the Israeli war machine. Absolutely.
And that includes smashing up factories, blocking sewers, breaking windows. You support all of that action?
I think we need to emotionally connect with what is happening here. 12,000 kids have been brutally murdered. I think if that's not going to get you on the streets, you basically have no values whatsoever. The next 1,000 generations are going to spit on your grave.
Charlie's here in the studio for us this morning. I mean, look, how much real concern should there be about this new group, or is it just because it's a new group forming that people are just a little bit on edge?
Well, I think the concern that's been raised in particular surrounds this collaboration with Palestine Action, which is set to occur in central London on Wednesday. And the reason why there is so much apprehension about that link with this Just Stop Oil protest movement is because Palestine Action has been involved in several extremely controversial protests since it was founded in 2020. It has had its members in and out of the courts and prison for issues surrounding direct action, as they describe it, which is mostly vandalism, the destruction of factories, and even sometimes premises associated with businesses that have links to Israel. If you're watching, you can see on your screens right now some vandalism that took place last year at a factory in Newcastle, people smashing up items on the roof there. Now, when they defend this action, they said they're doing this in order to break Britain's links to what they describe as a genocide ongoing in Gaza and to support the pro-Palestinian cause in general. And so the concern that's been raised is because most of these environmentalist groups, they're disruptive, sure, but they're generally non-violent. They slow down traffic, they will block roads, but they don't tend to do some of the action that Palestine Action get involved with. And so this collaboration has been described as an unholy alliance by Lord Wolney, the government's independent advisor on political violence and disruption. When we revealed this new link between Youth Demand and Palestine Action, he said it's part of a broader connection that they're tracking between far-left environmentalist groups and pro-Palestinian, he said, militant Gaza protesters. That connection has been described as a potential risk for further radicalisation for both elements as they combine their causes.
OK. Charlie Peters, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed.
Now, Youth Demand has told us in a statement that Chris Philp is right that criminality has no place on our streets, but it also should have no place in the corridors of power. Sadly, that's not the case at the moment. People of all political persuasions are seeing that politics is failing us and that our leaders are more interested in enriching themselves rather than protecting ordinary people. Young people are not content to have criminals running the country. We also approached Palestine Action directly. They're yet to get back to us.
Now, US President Joe Biden has called for an immediate ceasefire following a tense phone call between the Israeli Prime Minister and the American President.
Well, during that conversation, Mr Netanyahu also promised to open 2 new aid corridors into Gaza in the first such talk since Israel killed 7 aid workers on Monday.
Well, earlier on, we got the thoughts of US political analyst Eric Ham and a former advisor to the Bush and Clinton administrations, Steve Gill.
Israel's really in a hard place. They have to eliminate Hamas as a threat, and while trying to virtually eliminate any possibility of civilian casualties. I don't think anybody seriously thinks that Israel intentionally was hitting these aid convoys, even though some are claiming that. I think it's just in war in tight confines, there will be civilian casualties. And at some point, you've got the Hamas terrorists that are continuing to attack these convoys, steal the food and medicine that's intended for civilians. So it's a difficult situation all around. And I think you have to give Israel some latitude, while at the same time demanding they be very, very careful about civilian casualties. Well, I think the intelligence capabilities are more important than ever. You need to be giving Israel everything that we have, that the West has, of where targets are appropriate and those that are not, to try and make better lines between what would be a legitimate target and what might put civilians at risk. At the same time, Joe Biden is playing a political calculus. He has real issues with the Muslim community in the U.S. in key battleground states like Michigan and Minnesota that he has to carry in November to win re-election. And you have a lot of protest, Free Palestine kinds of protest, and even heckling at his own events. He's playing that political calculation, calculating that the Jewish vote in the U.S. is not as significant to him in those states as trying to make sure that the Muslim vote in those states stays sided with him. So he's playing a political calculation, and cutting off arms may or may not help him or hurt him in November.
Well, I think for the first time, we're beginning to see a dramatic change in the Biden administration, particularly how it speaks of Israel. We've already seen and heard President Biden call for an immediate ceasefire, something that we know has already been a complete 180 from this administration, as we know that there have been a number of UN Security Council memorandums that they have actually vetoed or would not support because of that call. But now we see this killing of 7 aid workers is clearly a bridge too far. And now with a tremendous pressure, particularly on President Biden, we're now seeing a massive change as the president of the United States is now finally confronting Benjamin Netanyahu on their continued adjudication of this war.
Well, let's take a look at the weather now for you with Alex Deacon.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Another wet start for many out there today, but it should get a bit brighter through the day. Some wet weather across Scotland with some hill snow here. Some pretty grim conditions on the roads with a mixture of hill snow and heavy rain at low levels. Not very pleasant at all. That wet weather is clearing away, as is the rain from eastern England. So brightening up, certainly in the south, some sunny spells developing through this afternoon, but there will still be a fair few showers to chug through on a fairly brisk wind. That wind, though, is bringing relatively mild air, so temperatures in the sunny spells 16, 17, maybe 18. It feels cold though still across Scotland, single digits likely here, and another pulse of rain will cross Scotland through this evening and overnight. It will chiefly be rain though tonight rather than the hill snow we've seen through last night. Another area of rain then works up across the rest of the UK, and the winds continue to strengthen, particularly in the west through the early hours, but again bringing that mild air, a very mild night, lows of 10 to 12 Celsius in the south. So a warm start to the weekend, but a windy one as well, particularly so in the west. Around western coast, we have a Met Office yellow warning in place. Storm Kathleen, named by the Irish Weather Service because they will bear the brunt of the strongest winds, but nevertheless unseasonably gusty for us on Saturday. Those winds could cause some travel disruption. There will be some showers, but many places will be dry with some sunshine, and it will still be very warm, particularly in the east, over 20 degrees for the first time this year.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, this is very exciting. It's our biggest giveaway of the year so far. Your chance to win a £10,000 Greek cruise for two, but that's not all.
No,
Stephen?
no, because you can also get your hands on £10,000 in cash and a whole host of luxury travel gifts.
Yes, so your 2025 holiday could be on us. Here's all the details you need to enter.
You could win our biggest prize giveaway so far. First, there's an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Plus, courtesy of Variety Cruises, a bespoke 7-night small boat cruise for two worth £10,000. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, your next holiday could be on us. Choose any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and find your home at sea. We'll also send you packing with these luxury travel gifts. For a chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 26th of April. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, do you need to go to the dentist? That's the question for you this morning. Not necessarily to get anything done with your teeth, but to go for a bit of Botox. Maybe a filler.
Yeah, well, dentists are facing backlash for selling Botox and lip fillers when there's huge backlogs in the system. We're talking about that next.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
One more story in. Milton Keynes, absolute chaos in the city. 300-odd youths arrested or at least involved in a
stampede.
A stampede.
Yeah,
what's been going on?
A stampede through the...
there we are.
This is the video. So this is a stampede through a shopping centre in Milton Keynes. I think, Amy, you live there, don't you? You live nearby.
For those on radio, we can see literally hundreds, scores of kids.
I think there are about 300 kids.
Are they in school uniform?
Yeah, quite a few.
This is as they've broken up from school, presumably.
Security tried to intervene, they've been accused of being heavy-handed. But I think this speaks to the fact that the landscape of youth services has just been decimated, and there's literally nothing for kids.
So hang on, whoa. You think that this has happened because social services have been diluted?
Youth services.
This is because there's no police around, there's no oversight, there's no deterrent, and 300 kids think that they can run through a shopping centre, frightening shoppers out of their lives.
Going to a shopping
Amy,
centre.
sorry, my kids would not be behaving like that because there's no ping pong available at the local
Aren't your kids like
youth
age
centre.
4 and 5? These are teenagers, and our teenagers are headed into a world where there are no leisure services. There are no
nothing to do with crime.
If
we up the ante on basketball, it's not going to stop kids being stabbed on the street.
What creates antisocial behaviour is having nothing to do.
It's lack of discipline in the home, lack of discipline in the home, and lack of policing on the streets, and a judiciary and a penal system that is utterly liberal.
You're going right to the end of the line. What about the preventative measures?
What about the people that these people affect by running through a shopping centre and stampeding? When there's mothers with kids in prams frightened out of their lives, and we're worried about the social services aspect
talking about
that's
carrot.
perhaps led to it.
You're talking about stick, right?
Yeah. So how long does your solution take to resolve it? Mine takes about 30 seconds. More police, bang them up. Yours...
Russell, should parents be fined?
More police, bang them up.
Absolutely, and the kids should be taken to task.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Now, welcome back. NHS dentists are facing backlash for selling Botox and lip fillers.
Yes, practices have been found right across the country flogging aesthetic treatments, including one that offered a facial slimming treatment. I could do with that myself, to be fair.
Stop it. Don't be so nasty to yourself. Well, the campaign group Toothless in England, which is advocating for an NHS dentist for everyone, said the situation was unfortunate but inevitable.
Well, let's talk to Dr. Serena Segal, who's also known as the foodie dentist, and lifestyle journalist Annette Kello. Good to see you both this morning. Serena, what do we make of dentists doing this on the side, as it were?
It's a really interesting question, to be honest. I mean, dentists are taught facial anatomy. We are taught the head and neck in quite a bit of detail during our undergraduate training. But dentists have gone out on their own and they've got specific training, done additional courses for injectables, so fillers and Botox. And actually, it's not just for cosmetic reasons, Botox. It's also for functional reasons. People who have something called TMJ disorders, which are essentially jaw aches and jaw tension. Botox can actually be used to relieve this. So it isn't just for the cosmetics, how we think Botox is useful. It can actually be used to relieve pain. But I don't think banning NHS dentists from injectables, in my opinion, doesn't really solve the NHS crisis, because there are some benefits to it also.
OK, Annette, what do you make of it?
Well, I think one's about skin, one's about teeth. You need to decide whether you're Arthur or Martha. If you are going down the aesthetics route, that's a whole different look. It's, you know, I worry as well when young girls go to the dentist and see, ooh, have your filler here, have your Botox. It's everywhere already on social media. And I feel it's one extra place where it shouldn't be needed. Now, there's 12 million people needing dentistry at the moment who have unmet needs. And I also feel, I've seen it on TikTok even, with doctors advertising, oh, don't bother doing doctors going down that route, just do aesthetics. And I think, where is this all going to end? It sounds a bit bananas. And I associate the dentist with pain.
But Annette, isn't going to a dentist, as Serena says, they've studied facial anatomy, isn't it better for patients to go to a dentist, a professional, rather than these backstreet clinics that we've seen pop up and down the country?
I do agree that doctors and dentists are the best people to do that, but I also think there's a moral compass to it, where I think, you know, nurse, for example, when I was pregnant, I went to have my bloods taken, and the nurse said to me, "Oh, after the baby's come out, do you fancy a bit of Botox?" And I was like, "Pardon?" And then he gave me his card. Now I think, where's this upsell going to end? And whilst I do appreciate they know anatomy, and that's great, I do think just have an aesthetics clinic. Just, if you want the big bucks, have the aesthetics clinic. In fact, even train further and be a plastic surgeon. That's where the mega bucks are. But I think dentistry...
Oh, the lines crashed a little bit there. Serena, I mean, Annette raises a really valid point, doesn't she? And although Botox may be used by dentists for jaw pain and something which is sort of related to dentistry, the idea that, and we struggle to get a dentist appointment as it is, the idea that actually half the time is going to be taken up with, in effect, beauty treatments, just frankly seem ridiculous at the moment.
I do understand this point of view, but I think that dentists are trying to promote a more kind of comprehensive care, because I have personally seen the benefit of...
Forgive me, but it isn't comprehensive care, is it? Beauty treatments is not about care. It's a different industry. It's not about... Most people don't need beauty treatments for their well-being, do they?
Oh, sure. And I think beauty and doing Botox for functional reasons are two kind of separate conversations. So I've personally seen the benefit of people getting Botox to relieve their jaw pain, and that can be transformative for some people. But I understand, in terms of the cosmetic side of things, that maybe dentists should differentiate, but also Botox is Botox, it's an injectable, and I think that it should be provided as a sort of comprehensive care to alleviate patients' pain, because it really does help.
Well, I think people would understand it under those circumstances. It's the rest of it, really, yeah. I think. Serena Segal, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Annette Callow, whose signal dropped out just a moment ago, we were talking to as well. She was a lifestyle journalist. I've got to say, I find it concerning.
Well, especially if you can't get a dentist appointment, which we know people can't. We've seen those 4 a.m. queues, haven't we, in Bristol? People trying to get signed up to an NHS dentist. 4 a.m. people started queuing. Yeah,
I mean, I've given up all hope of an NHS dentist. I go private because I don't know what else do I do? No. But then again, even with that, I need a new crown because I pulled one out last week. Do you remember? Yeah. Did you see the video of that? It was very bad. Instagram. So I've had it put back on. Oh, have you? I haven't actually asked you. I feel like a bad friend. No, you haven't. It's a very bad friend. So I got it back on that day, but it is slightly fractured, so it's got to be replaced. But they can't see me to put a new crown on till end of May. Well, that's no good, is it? So, but at least this is back on now, so it's doing most of the job. But this is the thing about dentistry, is often it's urgent. It's urgent care. It's people with toothache, and if you've had toothache, you know... It's the worst pain. You can't do anything for it unless you see a dentist. We need more dentists. We do. And especially if you're a private dentist, of course, it's a well-paid job. So it was always thought of as a really high, when I was young, if you became a dentist... Yeah, dentist or an optician. It's like, wow, they're a dentist. I went to school with someone who became a dentist. Yeah. And it was, really impressive. Yeah, respectable job, yes. Yeah. Well, let us know what you think about that one. Let us know if you're struggling to get a dentist appointment. Or a Botox appointment. Or do you go to your dentist to get Botox? Let us know. Oh, yeah, if you do. Yeah, gbnews@gbnews.com. Or lip fillers, so as you get your teeth and your lips done. That's together. All at the same time. Well, it is better than those backstreet clinics. Must be. We need to get rid of it all altogether. We don't need it. Nobody needs Botox. gbviews@gbnews.com. Now, Paul Coit is going to be with us next to go through all the sport. That's next.
The latest GB News travel. Good morning, I'm Julian Brett. In Kent, the eastbound M2, a lane is closed after a car overturned. That's from junction 5 for Sittingbourne to 6 for Faversham. Very, very slow on the approach there. Anti-clockwise M25 coming through Berkshire. We've got a broken down car blocking a lane at junction 15 for the M4. Those queues are back to junction 16 for the M40. In Worcestershire, the southbound M5 has a lane closed for emergency repairs. That's from junction 8 for the M50 to junction 9 for Tewkesbury. In Derbyshire, the southbound M1 also has a lane shut. That's down to an accident at junction 30 for Worksop. And in West Yorkshire, busy for the eastbound M62 after an accident. That's looking slow between junction 26 for Chain Bar and junction 27 for Gilderson. There's more in half an hour.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Time for the sport this morning. Paul Coyte is here, as always. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning to the both of you.
Should we talk about what, as you said earlier, it was a real humdinger?
It was a humdinger. Now, Ellie, what's the Cole Palmer celebration?
Do you not remember?
Do you not remember? Yes, which is the Cold
I'm not sure you did that with me around. I think that might have been with them.
No, it was on air. It was on air. It was zoned out last hour. You cannot get the professionals to work with, Paul.
I know, I feel bad. I thought you were there for the whole of it.
You really threw me under the bus.
I'm so sorry. I really didn't mean to. I'm so sorry. But the Cold Palmer, which
yes,
and he got himself a hat trick, 2 penalties, and a deflection as well. But it all counts. It's still a hat trick. But anyway, Chelsea 4, Manchester United 3. Man United were 3-2 up, went right down to the wire. 90 minutes, then another 10 minutes on the top. So Chelsea get a penalty. Everybody's celebrating, thinking, whoa, we've got to draw out of this. Manchester United are as sick as dogs, thinking, how could we have thrown this away? And then Chelsea get another goal with the Cold Palmer.
They threw it away last time.
Yeah.
Do you remember? Who were they playing? The other week, and then they threw it away at the last minute.
There was another one. I'm working.
You can't remember.
I work at a weekend. You know, this is as bad as this is.
Oh yeah.
And my son, we would go to Spurs every week and see loads of football, and he'll say, "Dad, that result last week." I go, "No, it's gone." I'm always.
You can't retain it all.
I can't
You're
retain
always
it
looking
all.
ahead.
Yeah, that's what I am.
Yeah.
Age.
I was hoping you weren't going to say that, but I know that's exactly what it is.
It's true. Tell us about Alexis McAllister.
What a goal he scored. Alexis
Boy done
McAllister.
good.
Boy done good. The Argentinian World Cup winner hit a fantastic shot to go 2-1 up for Liverpool. They went 3-1 up and then they won the game against Sheffield United. Although Sheffield United bottom club, and I did predict they don't stand an earthly. They'll be absolutely destroyed by Liverpool. It was one. They did put up a fight. They did. I know you enjoyed that game. 1-1 it was for quite a while until they came back and won 3-1 in the end. So Liverpool, huge game, and then Manchester United for the weekend. So that's
so they're back at
there's another humdinger for you.
Yeah. So they're back at the top though, Liverpool now.
Liverpool are back at the top, and then just below them, Arsenal, and then Manchester City. So it continues to be a three-horse race.
It's very tight at the top there, isn't it?
It is.
Should we talk about the golf?
Yeah, I do want to...
Oh, no. Oh, well, go on.
Do you want to do the F1?
Go on.
Oh, you want F1 or golf? Well, you tell me. I do requests. You tell me what you fancy.
I just want you to say, you know who.
Eh?
Him.
Who?
Max Verstappen.
Oh, you want to talk about Max Verstappen?
Oh, I love it the way you do.
Max Verstappen it's the first day of practice at the Japanese Grand Prix in Suzuka. There he is, just knocking back your regular bottle of champagne there just before. Never drink and drive, everybody, especially on the Suzuka, especially on a Japanese motor racing track. There's Lewis Hamilton. And there's Verstappen again. He was fastest, but it's only the first practice. Second practice going on at the moment, but horrendous rain at the moment. So then we have qualifying, and then the race will be on Sunday morning.
All right.
Do you want to do that little bit of golf?
Yeah. We've got this.
The thing is, it's about caddies. Justin Thomas, former world #1, has dispensed with Jim Bones Mackay, who was his caddy. And it's whether they haven't got on, but I'm not really sure exactly what's happened, but now he's looking for another caddy. But what I find really interesting in caddies is how much money caddies make.
So they make lots of money.
We had on the show.
Billy Foster. Billy, when we were talking about the Ryder Cup, weren't we? And he'd done 20 Ryder Cups. So it's if you're a top caddy, and obviously if you're with a top golfer, you can do very, very well. So what would you say? I know I always tend to do a quiz, but what sort of percentage would you say a caddy would make out of the winnings?
Out of the winnings?
Yeah.
10%.
And the 2%.
Like a tip.
Correct.
Ding, ding.
No, 10%.
Absolutely.
But they win millions.
It's a tip.
Exactly.
It's a tip.
So there's a guy called Steve Williams. Now, Steve Williams, New Zealander, was Tiger Woods' caddy. Now, you can imagine how well he's done. There's Steve there on the left, obviously with Tiger there on the right-hand side. Now, in 2011, Steve Williams earned $57,000. Not great, you would imagine. In 2007, because it was a more successful year for Tiger, he won or earned $1,086,000. But Steve Williams, in all, working with Tiger Woods, has earned $8.8 million from carrying the bag, which made him New Zealand's richest sports person, above rugby players, anything else. Yeah,
carrying the bag. Good on him.
We're in the wrong game.
Yeah, start carrying the bags.
Yeah.
Money's going to start.
I need to start
coming in.
practicing.
Fancy a fight.
Yeah, let's do it, shall we? Good. It's a oh, don't you stop! Don't you? Will you get in? He's picking on me again.
I've pulled your mic off now. Go on, talk us through this.
It's
Okay,
almost
ice
as
hockey.
quick,
We're going to ice hockey. We're going to New York Rangers against New Jersey Devils. You know what? You really roughed me up there, mister, didn't you?
You're both out of breath.
It's history. I'm slightly out of breath.
You're winded.
Everything. Anyway, history between two of the players, Matt Rempe and Curtis McDermott. Now, look, that's the start of the darn game. 2 seconds, they all get involved.
No.
Rempe refused to fight McDermott during a game before. He wasn't happy about it, so he started on him. Mass brawl, all 10 players involved. There were 5 fights in this, and everybody had a lovely time. And the thing is, they picked their partner. It's like, OK, I'm going after you, you're going after me, and then we get it on. And that's what they did, and they all got into... Look at them.
Love it.
Unbelievable. It was almost as violent as what you put me through just a moment. Do we have an HR department? Is there an HR department as well? OK, fine. Of a sorts. OK. I'll take you.
Get out. Thank you. Before I throw you out.
Before I
throw you out.
Oh, Ellie, help me out for crying out loud. Sit there. Leave him alone. He ain't worth it, she shouts.
Get out. Get out. Get yourself to safety.
OK.
God.
Thanks, Paul.
Oh, I'm exhausted.
Stay with us. We're going through the papers. That's next.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Danny, there's an irony here, isn't there? And that is this. On the one hand, the BBC expect older viewers to cough up more, and yet every opinion poll in the land shows us, Danny, that older people are the least satisfied with the service they get.
Well, the BBC don't give a damn about older people because, as I discovered when I was binned for being 50 and white from the BBC in the Midlands to diversify the lineup, they're after a younger audience because the longevity of the institution, that's the BBC, Martin, relies on the next generation of licence fee payers. And this is quite important, and it's a great point that you've raised. Anybody who's over the age of 50, certainly 60, the BBC just doesn't care about you because they're interested in attracting the next generation of licence fee payers. And when those 25-year-olds that they're after at the moment become 40 and 45, they'll stop caring about them too. Otherwise, the BBC just won't exist. It relies on new blood, if you like, when it comes to the licence fee. So that's a great point. They just don't care about middle-aged people.
And yet, they're now floating the idea of older people paying more. How would that work? Would it be means tested?
I know if ever you wanted to satisfy your curiosity that the BBC had a socialist agenda, it's the fact that they want the proletariat to pay more, to not pay, and the bourgeoisie to pick up the bill. This is classic Marxism for you. I know we're treating this lightly, Martin, but how would they means test you? Are you going to have to provide evidence of your bank account? And of course, people's financial situation, they change. You know, people's finances are fluid. So one year you may be what they class as wealthy, and then the next year you're not. So it's a situation that I find just impossible. How it's going to work, I just don't know. It's something that I just don't feel happy about.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country. That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Time to see what's in the papers this morning with former government advisor Claire Pearsall. I bet you're glad you're not advising him at the minute.
Absolutely.
And showbiz reporter Stephanie Tetchy. Good morning.
Good morning.
Adding the glamour this morning. Claire, let's start with The Guardian, should we? Beers and women. I don't understand. Is this a shocker that women are drinking beer?
It's stout.
Oh.
It's the rise of popularity of stout.
Other brands are available.
Exactly, like Guinness. But there has been an 11% increase in the global consumption of stout.
Yeah.
And it's driven by women. They are an increasingly large audience, but also because of the 0% that they now sell.
The 0% Guinness.
Yeah.
You cannot tell it's not the ordinary.
It is good.
I always have some of that in the fridge. It's because I don't drink anyway nowadays.
Yeah.
But it's just as good as the original.
We have it at home. My husband drinks it all the time. It's the 0%, and apparently the taste is exactly what you would expect as to Guinness would be. So, I'm absolutely all for that. And it's also down to things like the pandemic. Guinness's advertising was far superior to everybody else's, but the rise in craft beer where people wanted some actual taste and flavour and not just a generic sort of fizzy drink in a pint glass.
I can see you with a pint of Guinness.
Oh, gosh. My auntie, when I was about 4 years old, she used to give me sips of Guinness. So, like, one of my first early memories was drinking Guinness. I've never been a big beer drinker.
You with a pint.
No, more champagne.
I know.
But the thing with beers, I just find they make me feel bloated. And there is that connotation where you just think beers are being a man's drink. But I guess now that there is the 0% available on the market, I think more women are inclined to drink it. When I gave up drinking for about a year and a half, I was drinking all these 0% non-alcoholic drinks, and they do taste the same. So I can imagine the market's only going to increase for that.
My mother had to drink Guinness when she was pregnant with me.
Yeah. It's a good source of
iron.
Not a lot, before anyone panics.
But they did say that a half pint of Guinness was meant to boost your iron levels for pregnant ladies. They used to give it to horses.
Really?
Yeah,
Guinness?
Absolutely, because it shines their coat up and it's actually very good for them with the hops. And yeah, absolutely is. So it's one of those drinks that throughout the years has always been used, always been around, but it sort of fell out of popularity because people felt it was too heavy.
Wasn't the advertising back in the day, Guinness is good for you or something like that? Or
it was, sort of health benefits.
She'll be knocking it back now. Come in tomorrow with a mane of shiny hair.
Yeah, I'll do anything to help my hair look nice and shiny. But I did actually buy some Guinness the other day to put it in my Guinness cake.
Ooh.
And it was lovely. I made a chocolate Guinness cake. I do like
that sounds
baking.
nice.
And it really cuts through the chocolate.
Ooh.
So
where's that?
I recommend...
I was going to say, where's cake?
There's no cake, there's no cookies.
No, you have to blame my mother for that one. She took the Guinness cake. But I will bring it.
Joe,
sounds nice.
She said it was very good. She's been handing it out to everyone at church, and they're apparently my reviews are coming in very well. Out in rural Essex. So I'm glad you're enjoying that. Stephanie, this picture caught my eye this morning. And it's this property that is falling into the sea.
Yeah, this is what we call a cliffhanger, because this 18th century farmhouse in Trimmingham in Norfolk is basically on the verge of collapsing. Due to heavy rains last week, all the soft rock has eroded. The owner bought this for £132,000 5 years ago. £132,000 5 years ago, and unfortunately they're going to have to evacuate the property because it's now going to be demolished because it's very at risk of falling down.
The conservatory is hanging off the edge.
Yeah, I can imagine it seemed like it was going to be a goodbye when they bought it 5 years ago because there was much distance between them. Yes, very good views. And, you know, it's tempting to buy places like that, but then, you know, unfortunately, Mother Nature can have its way even with with your property.
You just couldn't sleep in it. You'd never get a good night's sleep.
No, not at all. But I do wonder if they were aware that this was going to happen. They probably knew it was going to happen, but not so soon, within 5 years. And the person is of retirement age, so kind of sad that they're now going to have to think about finding a new property.
Would you get... Does insurance cover that sort of thing, cliff erosion? I don't know if it does, you know, all the time.
I think it depends what the risk was when the survey was when the survey was done. If there had been no history of it and no real risk factors involved, then you should be covered. But I suspect if there was something that showed up then it wouldn't be. We have that in Kent with coastal erosion.
You know what? You're bang on the money about sleeping. I've just been reading into this story, and apparently the owner decided that even if he was in the room furthest away from the edge of the cliff, he would be losing sleep. So he moved out. No longer even lives in the property. Real tragedy. He bought it in his retirement to enjoy the views. And he's had to move. Very sad.
Fancy a biscuit, Claire?
Gotta love a biscuit.
I love a biscuit.
And this is regarding Hobnobs being voted the ultimate biscuit. Now, I think everybody's got a view on favourite biscuits, and Hobnobs, I mean, they're nice.
They have to be the ones with chocolate on them.
Yeah, they do. I mean, I like it. Chocolate Hobnob's great, but the real winner is the Jammy Dodger.
They're my favourite.
Thank you.
Custard cream's my favourite.
The custard so we're so in sync.
Do you like a custard cream?
Yeah. And I like the fact that food inflation hasn't come for them yet. They're still about 30p.
Yeah, I can eat a whole packet of Jammy Dodgers. They're like my guilty pleasure. Just a little jam in the middle and the heart-shaped.
It's because there aren't many in a packet of Jammy Dodgers, so therefore...
There can't be.
It's only really a couple of mouthfuls.
It's only 20.
Yeah. What are the best ones to dunk, though? Because that's a different story.
Well, Jammy Dodgers would hold quite well for a dunk.
Well, I think they do. I mean, it depends what you're drinking, tea or coffee. I know some people
it has to be tea.
No, you see, you need coffee. And then you can dunk absolutely anything in a cup of coffee. It's irrespective if it sinks to the bottom, it just adds to the flavour.
Digestive biscuits, I think that's a classic for a classic dunker, yeah.
You see, if digestives are like either with cheese...
He's a savoury.
Or buttered.
Buttered, yes. Yeah. And I think that's a real family thing, because I remember my dad teaching me that, which his parents, who hail from Cumbria.
Oh,
and it was a tea time treat.
Oh, yeah.
Digestive.
Yeah.
You've just got such a savoury tooth, I think.
I am more...
Want cheese on anything.
yeah. Cheese and peanuts.
Yeah, it's true. That's what... Now, I like a chocolate round to dunk. Nobody asked, but I'll tell you anyway. And I had it the other day, and it's a lovely dunking biscuit. The chocolate melts.
I don't know what a chocolate round is.
It's a round that's made of chocolate.
Is it
round biscuit
made of chocolate?
yeah, it's a fun chocolate. It's I guess you'd call it kind of like a shortbready middle with a thick chocolate edge.
Oh, that sounds nice.
Yeah, I'll bring you in a packet, but I need to stop promising you biscuits. Not showing up.
They never turn up.
It feels like a British thing, though, because I don't know if other countries do the dunking biscuits.
They must do.
No, I think you're right.
I don't think other countries do biscuits as much as we do.
Yeah.
No, they do like wafers and things.
Yeah,
It's not the same.
You need a properly stodgy biscuit coming out.
Yeah, it's like...
shut
up now, sorry.
How we go from that to talking dirty in the toilet, Stephanie, which I think sounds disgusting, but actually we need to know this.
We need to know, because we know we take our phones everywhere with us, but apparently taking our phones to the toilet puts us at risk of getting infection because we don't wipe, our phones, and, you're able to kind of get all this bacteria onto your mouth and onto your face. So health experts are saying leave your phone out of the toilets because you are picking up infections by just carrying it in there. So it's a bit of a dirty talk, but yeah, leave it out the toilet.
Yes. It's like those...
Well, it makes me feel ill.
I don't.
Yeah. No.
But you do get those hotels where they've always got a phone in the toilet.
I never understood why you would need to have a conversation whilst using the facilities. I don't get that. I mean, surely this is your quiet time. But also, I have to say that mine in the bottom of my handbag is probably equally as covered in...
I'll tell you what you can buy, ultraviolet phone sanitisers.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
We should all buy the little box and you plug it in and you should put it in and it sorts your phone out in about a minute.
Yeah, I like that.
We should do that. I want one of those, but it's, 50 quid I could do without spending.
We'll be clubbed together and we can all have it.
We should have one in the office or something.
Yeah,
but that's horrible. You shouldn't be taking your phone into the toilet.
No.
I hadn't thought about that, actually, but that is...
There you go.
important.
Something to all bear in mind on all of that one. Thank you, ladies, very much indeed.
It's been a
fun
pleasure.
to see you.
Thank you. It's been nice to smile. We needed it.
Yeah, we did
The
this
news
morning.
is very, very heavy.
Tough time, and we bring you some light and joy. That's what we aim for.
Toilets, biscuits, we aim to please.
We aim to do every time. Thank you very much indeed. Good
Stephanie
to see you
Clare,
this morning.
thank you. Right, let's take a look at the weather now with Alex Deacon.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Another wet start for many out there today, but it should get a bit brighter through the day. Some wet weather across Scotland with some hill snow here. Some pretty grim conditions on the roads with a mixture of hill snow and heavy rain at low levels. Not very pleasant at all. That wet weather is clearing away, as is the rain from eastern England. So brightening up, certainly in the south, some sunny spells developing through this afternoon, but there will still be a fair few showers to chug through on a fairly brisk wind. That wind, though, is bringing relatively mild air, so temperatures in the sunny spells, 16, 17, maybe 18. It feels cold, though, still across Scotland, single digits likely here. And another pulse of rain will cross Scotland through this evening and overnight. It will chiefly be rain, though, tonight, rather than the hill snow we've seen through last night. Another area of rain then works up across the rest of the UK, and the winds continue to strengthen, particularly in the west, through the early hours. But again, bringing that mild air, a very mild night, lows of 10 to 12 Celsius in the south. south. So a warm start to the weekend, but a windy one as well, particularly so in the west. Around western coast, we have a Met Office yellow warning in place. Storm Kathleen, named by the Irish Weather Service because they will bear the brunt of the strongest winds, but nevertheless unseasonably gusty for us on Saturday. Those winds could cause some travel disruption. There will be some showers, but many places will be dry with some sunshine, and it will still be very warm, particularly in the east, over 20 degrees for the first time this year.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Julian Brett. In Kent, the eastbound M2, a lane is closed after a car overturned. That's from junction 5 for Sittingbourne to 6 for Faversham. Very, very slow on the approach there. Anti-clockwise M25 coming through Berkshire. We've got a broken down car blocking a lane at junction 15 for the M4. Those queues are back to junction 16 for the M40. In Worcestershire, the southbound M5 has a lane closed for emergency repairs. That's from junction 8 for the M50 to junction 9 for Tewkesbury. In Derbyshire, the southbound M1 also has a lane shut. That's down to an accident at junction 30 for Worksop. And in West Yorkshire, busy for the eastbound M62 after an accident. That's looking slow between junction 26 for Chain Bar and junction 27 for Gilderson. There's more in half an hour.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
You could win our biggest prize giveaway so far. First, there's an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Plus, courtesy of Variety Cruises, a bespoke 7-night small boat cruise for two worth £10,000. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, your next holiday could be on us. Choose any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and find your home at sea. We'll also send you packing with these luxury travel gifts. For a chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 26th of April. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. It's 9 o'clock on Friday, the 5th of April. Today, the Westminster honey trap scandal. Tory MP Will Wragg admits his involvement after leaking colleagues' numbers to a man he met on a dating app.
Yes, William Wragg has apologised profusely and said that he is mortified after leaking the numbers of up to 12 other MPs and parliamentary staffers. Questions over security. I'll bring you the details shortly.
US President Joe Biden tells Benjamin Netanyahu to stop killing civilians in Gaza, begging the question, will Washington withhold arms sales to Israel?
More travel misery for commuters as train drivers start a new wave of strikes over pay.
Travel chaos once again, the first of 3 strike days as rail passengers are urged to check before they travel.
A survey reveals a record number of police officers are now turning to food banks in order to stay afloat. Is it time they got a pay rise?
And do you ever pop to the dentist for a filler? In your face, that is. Yeah, anyway, dentists are under fire after providing patients with Botox treatments and fillers amid a backlog of dental appointments.
Rain, hill snow, 20 Celsius possible tomorrow, and some very strong winds from a storm system. There's lots going on with the weather over the next couple of days. Join me later for a full forecast.
Morning to you. I'm Stephen Dixon.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
I was trying to find some views, but I think they've all been whisked away.
Oh, I think I've got some here on police pay.
Oh, this has got you going.
Yeah, John says, I thought you had to be on benefits to claim food at food banks. Well, no, I did a story at Food Bank last year, I think it was, and the lady who was running it was saying 2/3 of people coming in now actually have jobs, many of them on 0-hour contract jobs, to be fair. But she was saying it's really shocked her. She works at a food bank.
Steve says the wheel has gone full circle again. In the late 70s, police were leaving in droves because of low pay. Now it's happening again. Well, retention is an issue. But it said the low pay at the Metropolitan Police, which presumably is weighted because it's London and all the rest of it, but it's £37,000 was the starting pay. 37 grand, well, just under 36,775 to be exact.
You remember things very well.
That's not low pay. And within 5 years, you can apply to be a sergeant, which starts at £57,000 in the Metropolitan Police. It's not low pay.
And then you get good benefits, good pension. There are other things to factor in as well. I think a few of you have made that point.
Yeah.
So do keep those views coming in. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Now, main news today, the Conservative MP Will Wragg has admitted to handing out personal phone numbers of colleagues to a man he met on a dating app.
Well, the Hazel Grove MP said he provided the details after sending intimate pictures of himself to the user. Wragg said he was scared that the man had compromising things on him.
Well, earlier we got the thoughts of the Exchequer Secretary to the Treasury, Gareth Davies.
Extremely troubling and worrying for anybody to hear this kind of activity takes place. Will Wragg has, as you referred to, apologised for the action he took, but took in a set of circumstances that I think many could potentially sympathise with, in that he felt compromised and acted in a way that he thought appropriate, but has clearly apologise for that activity. I would just say to anybody watching that feels that they're in a similar position, if they ever feel like they're being compromised or blackmailed, they should report that to the police.
Well, let's speak now to our political correspondent, Catherine Forster. Good to see you this morning, Catherine. And now there are going to be great concerns about security and MPs' safety in Westminster.
Yes, indeed, because, of course, MPs, they're human like the rest of us. They make mistakes, as we all do. But, of course, they are public figures and there is concern. We have no idea who is behind these messages, but questions over security of MPs. Some suggestions, perhaps, that there could be hostile states behind this, Russia or China. We simply do not know at the moment. But the MP, William Wragg, at the centre of this storm, apologising and absolutely mortified. What happened is he was on Grindr, a dating app. He met somebody down the line. He sent an explicit image. Further down the line, he was then pressured to give the phone numbers of MPs and parliamentary staffers over. He did that. This person masquerading as either a man called Charlie or a girl called Abby then got in touch with those people, flirty messages, etc., ultimately asking for explicit images. The majority of MPs and staffers contacted batted these away, but we understand that 2 other MPs did send images. Now, William Wragg, he's vice chair of the 1922 committee. He's very well respected and liked in Westminster, I would say, but he is saying they had compromising things on me. They wouldn't leave me alone. I told them to stop. I've hurt people by being weak. I was scared. I'm mortified. I'm so sorry that my weakness has caused other people hurt. Now, Leicestershire police are investigating what they call malicious communication. So Lindsay Hoyle, the leader of the House of Commons, has advised MPs to get in touch with the security department if they have any concerns. But a very difficult day for William Wragg, certainly.
OK, Catherine Forster there for us in Westminster. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, let's talk to Labour's Deputy National Campaign Coordinator, Ellie Reeves, who joins us now. Good to see you this morning. On this issue, and away from what is a personal tragedy, frankly, for Will Wragg in all of this, how concerned are you that there is someone out there, whether an individual or perhaps a foreign actor, who is targeting members of the House of Commons?
I think it's deeply concerning. It's subject to a police investigation now, so it's difficult to sort of cut across that and say too much. But what I would say is that anyone that thinks they might have been a victim of this scam should report it to the police and the parliamentary authorities. And, you know, I think the advice from the Speaker, Lindsay Hoyle, for MPs that are concerned to seek advice from the security team is really good advice.
Has heightened concerns, hasn't it, about the vulnerability of MPs to cyber attacks, especially in an election year? What support, what advice is being given to MPs? Because we don't actually know how many people have been targeted. It's thought that some Labour MPs have also been victim to this.
Yeah, that's right. We don't know much about this at the moment in terms of the numbers of people that have been targeted, nor do we know the nature of it and where this has come from. So I don't know how helpful it would be to speculate, but MPs can get briefings on their security if they're concerned. You know, I receive briefings on security, and I think that's really important, particularly, as you say, during an election year.
We spoke to the government earlier on this morning, celebrating the fact that what we saw in the spring budget, the spring statement, national insurance is coming down for a lot of working people tomorrow, down from 10 to 8%. Money in our pocket, says the government. What's wrong with that?
Well, the tax burden is at a 70-year high, despite the changes to national insurance. And families are typically £870 worse off. That's because of fiscal drag, people being dragged into higher tax brackets, but also people will also be facing increases to their council tax bills this month. So despite what the government says, people are worse off after 14 years of Conservative government.
Yeah, well, we're going to see Rachel Reeves later unveil your party's latest attack advert. It is very easy to attack, isn't it, when you're in opposition? But what will the Labour Party actually do to help working families?
Well, what we've seen under this government is a mismanagement of the economy. People still remember that Liz Truss budget that crashed the economy, sent the markets into a spin. People are still paying hundreds of pounds more in their mortgages as a result of that. That's why under Labour, we've made growth our number one mission. The way that you ensure people are better off is by growing the economy, and growth has been staggeringly low under the Conservatives, but also financial stability. We can't have a repeat of that mini budget which has left people worse off. That's why everything that Labour does will be fully costed, and financial stability will be at the heart of a Labour government.
But you, forgive me, but then you said the big problem here is fiscal drag. But you're not saying in any sense that Labour, if you come into power, are going to get rid of that fiscal drag.
Well, we want to see the tax burden on working people lower, but you can only get there if you grow the economy, which is why growth is our #1 mission. But there are a number of things that we can do straight away to make the tax system fairer. For example, ending the tax breaks that private schools currently enjoy and putting that back into the state sector where the vast majority of people go to school. Introducing a proper windfall tax on the energy giants, closing the private equity tax loophole. These are all fairer tax decisions that could be made, that a Labour government would do to make the tax system fairer.
Well, yes, fairer in one sense, you could argue, but what it's not going to do is have any impact on us paying our taxes. And that's what people want in a cost of living crisis, don't they? They want to be paying less tax. And you're not offering... You criticise the government for the high tax bans, the high tax rates that we're paying at the moment, but you're not offering any solution to that.
But the reason the tax burden is so high is because the government have failed to grow the economy. If you look at the UK compared to other countries, our growth is staggeringly low. That's why we've set out our plan to grow the economy, for example, through our National Wealth Fund, through setting up GB Energy, by reforming skills and the apprenticeship levy so that we can grow the economy. And that's how people will be better off. The Tories have completely failed on all of that.
Look, we're hearing about a tense phone call between Joe Biden and Benjamin Netanyahu. Joe Biden warning that Israel needs to take immediate action to stop civilian deaths in Gaza, an indication that he is considering stopping arms sales to the country. What's the Labour Party's stance on this? Would you consider, in light of Monday's missile attack, would you consider limiting intelligence sharing and arms sales to Israel?
Well, I've got serious concerns around arms sales to Israel. That's why we have repeatedly called for the government to publish the legal advice that they have received in relation to arms exports. Now, if that advice shows that there is a clear risk that UK arms could be used to facilitate or commit breaches of international humanitarian law, then arms exports to Israel should stop immediately. But the government haven't published that advice. They'd had it for almost a month now, but haven't done anything with it. And if the advice does show that there's a clear risk that international humanitarian law is being breached, then it does ask questions about why the government haven't acted sooner.
Can we just finish off? I want to talk to you about the water situation because it's causing a lot of concern up and down the country. So many people have messaged us when we've talked about it saying it needs to be nationalised. People who would vote for all sorts of different parties. Labour said that you were looking at nationalising water. Then you seem to row back on that. What's your current stance?
We don't have plans to renationalise water. The billions and billions of pounds that it would cost and the time it would take to unpick the current structure would mean that we'd see further delays for the infrastructure investment that we desperately need in water. But there's a number of things that we would do in relation to water. First of all, communities are fed up of being blighted by sewage being poured into rivers and seas. That's why we would ban bonuses for water companies that are dumping sewage. We'd also introduce criminal sanctions for water bosses who repeatedly oversee the illegal dumping of sewage. We also need a tougher regulator, an end to self-monitoring for the water companies and proper fines that act as a deterrent for water companies who dump sewage.
OK. Ellie Reeves, it's good to talk to you this morning. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Well,
I think it's a tough call, that, because talk about being across... She's no idea what we're going to ask her. We asked her about a load of different stuff.
Loads of different things. Got to be across it all.
Got to be across your briefs. That was impressive, because they're not always... Actually, whether you agree with what she says or not is another matter, but she certainly had answers for everything.
Yep, she was across the brief, wasn't she?
So is Bev Turner.
Yes, and Ben Leo.
Oh, sure I am. This is my 9th show of the week for GB News this week, so I'm very much relying on Ben to know what's going on this week.
Well, you're in demand, aren't you?
We've had our coffees.
I'm a mug. Everyone else is on holiday. It's Easter week. But this developing story, I think, is interesting about the MPs and this sexting scandal, if that's what it is. Do you feel a bit sorry for him?
I do.
Will Ragg.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. I think he's been foolish, but it's a human mistake.
Yeah. And I also think if you look into the detail of this, whoever this person or this body was, very personal information that they were using to message this person. They knew the names of their partners. They
Shouldn't he have just gone to the police instead of giving his colleagues' details away? Foolish as an isolated incident, yes. Escalating it by sharing other people's details, goodness me, you're an MP.
I think I was very scared.
Well, yeah, but if you've got compromising pictures out there, you're worried about them coming out, aren't you? I mean, ultimately, that's the thing. You're worried about those images coming out. You should never have taken them in the first place.
Don't send X-rated pictures to randoms who message you on WhatsApp.
It shows poor judgment, though, doesn't it? Really poor judgment on his part. But, you know, it is as old as time.
Of course it is.
Behaving in a manner that
I'd like to know why MPs and politicians have so much sexual baggage. I mean, it seems to be one...
That's not the debate we're doing, but do let us know your thoughts on that at home.
They don't.
Don't you think?
They don't.
Well...
No?
They don't. There is plenty of it, but it's no more than anybody else. It's just
it seems like there is more than other polls.
Because they're in the spotlight with this sort of thing, and anything to do with sexual baggage around an MP is always a scandal.
Yeah.
And so it makes the headlines.
All right, elsewhere, we're discussing...
They seem to have their heads easily turned, don't they? Maybe that's a better way of putting it.
Maybe it's stress.
Maybe.
Elsewhere, we're discussing opposing views. Would you date somebody who is of a different political, alignment
persuasion
to you?
I think that's a great debate.
And lots more. Don't go anywhere.
Thank you very much, you two.
Right, now, importantly, it's our biggest giveaway of the year so far. It's your chance to win, and we're very jealous, a £10,000 Greek cruise for two.
Yes, but there's also £10,000 worth of cash and a whole host of luxury travel gifts. So your 2025 holiday could be on us. Here's all the details you need to enter.
You could win our biggest prize giveaway so far. First, there's an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Plus, courtesy of Variety Cruises, a bespoke 7-night small boat cruise for two worth £10,000. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, your next holiday could be on us. Choose any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and find your home at sea. We'll also send you packing with these luxury travel gifts. For a chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 26th of April. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Tubes & Co. Weekdays from 6 p.m.
You think this country needs new gas power stations. Apparently, this will all be about trying to get some form of energy security. Rishi Sunak has upset people today with this suggestion, people saying that actually this would do more damage to climate change than it would do good. Where are you on it, Richard?
I'll tell you exactly where. We need a lot more gas power stations and nuclear power stations because quite often the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine. Last week, we imported 16% of all our electricity because we haven't got enough capacity in the UK, and we're now totally over-reliant on renewables.
The part of the problem is the lack of storage capacity, which the government has finally got round to addressing. I think this as backup is actually quite a sensible idea. But they are not doing anything, as far as I can tell. At the moment, it will be retrofitted to have storage capability, which seems to be utterly bonkers. I mean, anyone who's got solar panels, you know very well you're storing up energy. So it's about storage as much as production. And they could have gone, 20 years ago, we could have had nuclear power. We could have done more. We haven't looked far enough ahead in the future, and we are in grave danger of making the same mistake. I mean, the other side of this is what is the difference going to be? Blackouts are you know, they're irritating and...
Irritating? It'd be disastrous. It would literally destroy our economy.
Well, they would be now, but, you know, some of us remember 3-day weeks and things like that. And in fact, you know, I grew up thinking that everybody had, you know, at least a couple of days a week when they had to eat off a primer stove and things.
This is, again, I don't want to harp on, but this is one of the problems in the politics in our country, isn't it? So many politicians, they just think in election cycles.
Absolutely.
They just think, what can I do and say to get my own backside re-elected at the next general election? They're not always looking ahead at, actually, politics aside, what is genuinely the best thing for this country.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's Live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's Live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Well, this isn't what you want to hear. More travel misery for commuters as train drivers start a fresh wave of strikes over pay.
Let's head to Manchester Piccadilly, should we? Our North West reporter Sophie Reaper is there for us this morning. Hi, Sophie.
Good morning to you both. As you say, I'm at Manchester Piccadilly this morning, and the situation here on the ground is thus. If I suddenly decided I wanted to head down to Birmingham, say, today, then this is what I'd be met by on the Trainline app. No trains whatsoever are available. And it's a similar story if I decided, for example, that I wanted to head down to London this weekend. Once again, there are no results there available. And the reason for that is because, once again, we are seeing train strikes. The ASLEV union are walking out for 3 days. Today, we're seeing 5 rail companies where their drivers are walking out and no services whatsoever are being provided. Those services are Avanti West Coast, East Midlands Railway, West Midlands Trains, London North Western Railway and Cross Country. All 5 of those will be providing no services today, and rail passengers are being urged to check before they travel anywhere. Now, ASLEV union members voted last month to continue this strike action, and in response to that, their General Secretary Mick Whelan had to say those votes show yet again a clear rejection by train drivers of the ridiculous offer put to us in April last year by the Rail Delivery Group, which knew that the offer would be rejected because a land grab for all the terms and conditions we have negotiated over the years would never be accepted by our members. Now, he refers there to a ridiculous offer, which actually is a pay rise of 8%, which a representative from the Department of Transport has said would mean the average train driver's salary would be raised from £60,000 a year up to £65,000 a year. The spokesperson from the Department of Transport also said ASLEV is the only rail union continuing to strike, targeting passengers and preventing their own members from voting on the pay offer that remains on the table. However, as it stands, we're now entering the 20th month of rail strikes. So, as it stands, unless they can get around a table and come to some kind of offer that everyone is happy with, for now at least, it seems that it's the rail passengers who are the ones who are going to continue to suffer.
Yeah, isn't it always the way? Sophie, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed for the update. It's so depressing trying to get a train at the moment.
I know. It feels relentless, doesn't it?
And after last weekend where driving anywhere was a nightmare, it's just crazy.
Don't go anywhere, is the tip. And if you have to go somewhere, check before you travel. It's very, very good advice, because quite often, especially on Monday, many of the train services will not be running.
No.
So do check it out.
Do you know, I can understand why so many people at the minute are going, I've never known it so bad.
Want to emigrate.
I feel the same way at the moment, but anyway, things will always get better.
They will, and they're going to get better tomorrow, because we're back 6 a.m. on Breakfast, and Britain's Newsroom with Ben and Bev is up next.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Another wet start for many out there today, but it should get a bit brighter through the day. Some wet weather across Scotland with some hill snow here. Some pretty grim conditions on the roads with a mixture of hill snow and heavy rain at low levels. Not very pleasant at all. That wet weather is clearing away, as is the rain from eastern England. So brightening up, certainly in the south, some sunny spells developing through this afternoon, but there will still be a fair few showers to chug through on a fairly brisk wind. That wind, though, is bringing relatively mild air, so temperatures in the sunny spells 16, 17, maybe 18. It feels cold though still across Scotland, single digits likely here, and another pulse of rain will cross Scotland through this evening and overnight. It will chiefly be rain though tonight rather than the hill snow we've seen through last night. Another area of rain then works up across the rest of the UK, and the winds continue to strengthen, particularly in the west through the early hours, but again bringing that mild air. A very mild night, lows of 10 to 12 Celsius in the south. So a warm start to the weekend, but a windy one as well, particularly so in the west. Around western coast, we have a Met Office yellow warning in place. Storm Kathleen, named by the Irish Weather Service because they will bear the brunt of the strongest winds, but nevertheless unseasonably gusty for us on Saturday. Those winds could cause some travel disruption. There will be some showers, but many places will be dry with some sunshine, and it will still be very warm, particularly in the east, over 20 degrees for the first time this year.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Julian Brett. We're looking at Kent first of all. The eastbound M2 is moving very slowly after a car overturned. That's from junction 5 for Sittingbourne to 6 for Faversham. It does look like all those lanes are now back open though. Northamptonshire, the A5 has been closed in both directions. There's been an accident between the B5385 at Watford and the Wilton turnoff. Do expect long delays there. Nottinghamshire, the A1M remains closed in both directions because of a lorry fire. That's between junction 34 for Blythe to junction 35 for the M18. And taking a look at West Yorkshire, this is the westbound M62. A lane remains closed here. A car has overturned between junction 23 for Huddersfield to junction 22 for the A672 at Rishworth Moor. There's more in half an hour.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
I'm Mark Dolan and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.